All right, where we at? Good morning, everybody. This hearing is called to order. This is a public hearing of Labor and Civil Services Committee. I'm Councilman Nielsen, Chairman. Quorum has been present today. We have Councilman Good, Councilman Blackwell, and Councilman Squilla. Will the clerk read both titles of the bills for consideration?
Bill number 150234, an ordinance amending Title 22 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Public Employees Retirement Code by amending Section 22-301 entitled Service Retirement Benefits and Section 22-401 entitled Service-Connected Disability Retirement Benefits to add new subsections requiring a specified minimum monthly benefit amount for certain retired fire employee members under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 150235, an ordinance amending Title 22 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Public Employees Retirement Code by amending various provisions to provide for provisions for participants performing qualified military service to allow certain transfer payments for purchase of service and for purchase of service by certain classes of employees, to allow for non-spouse beneficiary rollover rights, to provide certain retroactive effective dates, and otherwise provide language required by the Internal Revenue Code under certain terms and conditions.
Please call our first witness.
Our first witness, please come to the podium. Mr. Rob.
Mr. Rob DeBlow, Director of Finance and Chair of the Board of Pensions. Good morning.
Morning.
Please state your name and title for the record.
Morning, my name is Rob Dubo. I'm the city's finance director, and I'm also chair of the Board of Pensions.
Proceed with your testimony.
I'm here today to testify in support of bills number 150235 and 150234. I'm accompanied by Matt Weinhorn, who's outside counsel, and he's sitting right there. Bill number 150235 proposes amendments required by the IRS in the course of its customary review of the pension plan. The bill would also conform provisions of the pension plan to reflect current board practice and addresses the transition to the city retirement system of former employees of the Fairmount Park Trust who were transitioned into city employment in July 2013. The amendments would make a number of required changes, and we list some of them in here. The bill codifies the acceptance of transfers from the 457B plan to purchase prior city or other creditable service, and will provide for service credit to be purchased with 401A plan, 403B plan, and IRA funds. Finally, the bill creates a procedure for former Fairmount Park Trust employees to purchase service credit in Plan Y for their years of work as trust employees. The specifics of these provisions incorporate agreements between the city and District Councils 33 and 47, and will allow non-represented and exempt former trust employees to purchase service credit under the same terms. The bill requires these employees to pay the employer and employee contributions for the purchase under the current actuarial valuation. The city will bear the cost of interest on the purchase in order to protect the pension fund. Bill number 150234 implements the terms of an interest arbitration award between Local 22 of the IAFF and the city by amending Section 301 of the Retirement Code to provide a minimum monthly benefit of $1,000 for uniformed fire employees with 20 years of credited service at the time of retirement. It also amends Section 401 to provide the same minimum benefit for any uniformed fire employee receiving service-connected disability. The administration supports both of these bills. We also have a technical amendment to bill number 150235 that's been distributed to the committee, and I'd ask for its adoption. In closing, I request the committee report both bills as amended out with a favorable recommendation, and that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading at the next council session. And that concludes my testimony, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for this witness? Thank you. Are there anyone else here to testify on bills number 150234, 150235? Seeing none, this now concludes the public meeting of Labor and Civil Services Committee. We will now go into our public meeting. Public meeting of Labor and Civil Services is now open. The chair recognizes Councilman Good for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Bill number 150234 be reported out of this committee with favorable recommendation. The rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading on next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 150234 be reported from this committee with favorable recommendation, and further moved that the rules of this suspended to permit first reading of this bill in next session of City Council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. The chair recognizes Councilman Good for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the amendment to Bill 150235 as circulated to members of the committee be approved.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 150235 be adopted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment adopted. Chair recognizes Councilman Good for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Bill 150235 as amended be reported out of this committee with favorable recommendation. The rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading on next council session.
The bill has been properly moved and seconded that Bill number 150235 be reported from this committee with favorable recommendation, and further moved that the rules of City Council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill in the next session of City Council. All those in favor of this motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. This concludes the public meeting of Labor and Civil Services Committee, and we will now, we already did that, okay? No, we're done. This concludes our public meeting. Thank you.
We thank all of you for coming again. As you know, we continued this hearing, and we note that we have a sign person, interpreter, so that everyone will feel represented. So we're grateful for that. Thank you. We will formally begin the hearing for Resolution 140577. We note that the president is here. Councilman Greenlee's here, and other people, as well as myself and others, will be coming down to attend our hearing. We will ask the clerk to read the title of resolution number 140577.
A resolution authorizing City Council's Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless to hold hearings concerning increasing resources to expand the production and preservation of affordable housing in the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you very much. We have a statement that we will read. And again, we thank all of you for being here. We welcome you to this hearing, and we're grateful to have this first part of a two-part hearing to talk about the issue today, and certainly continuation of another hearing. This is a two-part hearing to talk about what we can do next. Let me note that an uneven economic recovery following the Great Recession has brought income inequality into sharp relief across the country, including our city, Philadelphia. Coupled with the housing crash, which spurred the recession, many regions of the country are grappling with a critical shortage of affordable housing. This crisis can be seen in our cities, suburbs, and rural areas, and is not just in large municipalities like New York and San Francisco, but in smaller cities such as Carlsbad, New Mexico, and Fort Collins, Colorado. Just Google affordable housing crisis in America, and you will see the screen light up with hundreds of articles and studies. I'd like to share with you some Philadelphia facts on affordable rental housing. In February of 2015, the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia issued a report entitled Affordability and Availability of Rental Housing in the 3rd Federal Reserve District. This report states that in Philadelphia, there are only 38 affordable rental units for every 100 households whose income is 30% or less of median family income. leaving a shortage of 69,600 units. Of these renter households, 72% spend 50% or more on their family income, on rent. Point, in Philadelphia, there are only 74 affordable rental units for every 100 households whose income is between 30% and 50% of median family income, leaving a shortage of 41,523 units. Of these renter households, 65% spend more than 50% of their household income on rent. The National Low-Income Housing Coalitions report that out of Reach 2014 states that in Philadelphia, a household earning minimum wage would have to work 120 hours per week to spend no more than 30% of their income on to afford the median rent for a two-bedroom apartment. I'll repeat that. In Philadelphia, a household earning a minimum wage would have to work 120 hours per week to spend no more than 30% of their income to afford the median income rent for a two-bedroom apartment. Or in the alternative, in Philadelphia, a household would have to earn $21.83 per hour, working a 40-hour per week to pay no more than 30% of their income to afford the median rent for a two-bedroom apartment. Several years ago, the Philadelphia Housing Authority, and we are so grateful to have Kelvin Jeremiah, a great leader, here today to testify. Several years ago, the Philadelphia Housing Authority closed its waiting list when the number of applicants exceeded 100,000. As of today, persons who applied in the 2004 list are being serviced, making the wait time for an average person 10 years. What are some of the shortages? The causes of our shortage of affordable housing? In the United States, adjusted for inflation, between 2000 and 2012, median gross rents increased by 10%, while median renter income decreased by 13%. As if rising rents and lower incomes were not enough, one of the results of the housing crash in 2007 is that home ownership has declined by 5%, and there are 8 million more renter households today than there was back in 2007. This increasing demand has driven up rents in existing rental housing, while production of affordable rental housing has declined. As the market forces described above were at work, we have witnessed a slow and steady withdrawal at the federal and state level of financial support for the production of affordable housing. The evidence is clear. In 1995, the city of Philadelphia received $73 million in community development block grant funding. Adjusted for inflation, and in order to have the same buying power, the city would have received $113 million this year. Instead, we received $40 million. That means we have lost $73 million in buying power. Just think of how many more units of affordable housing we could produce with $73 million more in resources. The continuing decline in federal funding was further compounded when Governor Corbett, in his first budget, eliminated the Housing and Redevelopment Assistance Program. This result was that Philadelphia lost $5 million in state funding that was an annual allocation to the city that we relied upon to provide assistance to our most vulnerable citizens. These forces, increased rents, declining incomes, and withdrawal of federal and state financial support for the construction and preservation of affordable housing, have served to exacerbate an already difficult problem for the city that has a poverty rate in excess of 26%. Today, we have asked witnesses to describe to us the nature and scope of the affordable housing crisis in Philadelphia and what they believe are some of the causes of this growing problem. So today, as our hearing resumes, we are asking you to come forward with ideas on how we, the city, can increase resources locally and what other cities around the country are doing to create additional funding and affordable housing preservation and development. So thank you for listening to this lengthy statement, but we wanted to be sure for the record what we're talking about, where we are going, and how we think our direction can be, and what we can do to improve this in this important area. Again, we thank everyone, and we will begin our hearing. The chair notes that Councilwoman Maria Sanchez, Vice Chair of the committee, is here as well. So we'll begin now with Deb McCullough, these are our housing agency officials. Deb McCullough, Office of Housing and Community Development. Kelvin Jeremiah, Philadelphia Housing Authority. And Marie Nahikian, Director of Supportive Housing, Deputy Managing Director. Thank you very much. We thank you all. Thank you for coming again to talk about this most important issue.
Okay, you want me to go? Okay.
So you may start in any.
Yep. Good afternoon,
order.
Chairman Blackwell, members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless, and members of City Council. I'm Melissa Long, Deputy Director of the City's Office of Housing and Community Development. I am here to represent Deborah McCullough to present testimony on the need for affordable housing in Philadelphia. I believe many, if not all, of those who are going to testify today will note that there is a tremendous need for affordable housing in Philadelphia. Let me offer some statistics. 1/3 of homeowners and more than half of renters are cost-burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of the income toward housing costs. 15% of homeowners and 31% of renters are severely cost-burdened, as you had mentioned, meaning that they pay more than half of their income toward housing costs. For low-income Philadelphians, the need is especially dire. Approximately 70% of very low and low-income homeowners are cost-burdened. Approximately 70% of very low and moderate income renters are cost-burdened, and nearly 70% of very low-income renters are severely cost-burdened. The need for affordable housing goes far beyond finding a home. For many of our homeowners, maintaining that home is an extreme financial challenge. 85% of Philadelphia's housing stock is more than 40 years old, and more than half is more than 70 years old, meaning that home maintenance is a critical need. However, many homeowners lack the resources to maintain their homes, as evidenced by the nearly 4,000 homeowners on the waiting list for the Basic Systems Repair Program, a waiting list that is several years long. The Weatherization Assistance Program waiting list is now so long that that program has stopped taking applications. The Adaptive Modifications Program waiting list now includes nearly 600 households, a backlog that would require 2 years of funding to resolve. Why do we have such an unmet need? One of the biggest reasons is the significant drop in federal resources over the past 15 years. Since fiscal year 2002, the funding Philadelphia receives from the Community Development Block Grant and home programs, the two primary sources of federal housing funds, has been reduced by more than 45%. In fiscal year 2002, Philadelphia received $88 million from these two programs. In fiscal year 2016, we will receive $47 million, a drop of more than $41 million. The cumulative reduction in funding in these programs since 2003 is more than $310 million. Philadelphia has taken steps to mitigate this reduction in federal resources. We have aggressively sought competitive federal grant funding and have, with our partners, successfully secured tens of millions of dollars through the Neighborhood Stabilization and Choice Neighborhoods programs. We've obtained Promise Zone status and the federal funding priority that comes with it for much of West Philadelphia. Working with our partners at the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, we leverage millions of dollars each year through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And we have brought our own money to the table, creating the Philadelphia Housing Trust Fund in 2005 and increasing the fees that fund it in 2012. However, even the success the city has had in finding alternate funding sources has not fully replaced the federal funds lost, meaning that instead of addressing our need for affordable housing, we are merely falling behind more slowly than if we relied on CDBG and home funds alone. The need for affordable housing in Philadelphia is real, and OHCD looks forward to returning to this committee on May 11th to further explore means of addressing this need. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, that's a good idea. We'll entertain questions after everyone makes their remarks. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Ladies first.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell, and members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless, and members of the City Council. I'm Marie Nahikian, Director of the Philadelphia Office of Supportive Housing, and I'm here to present testimony on the need for affordable housing for persons seeking shelter in Philadelphia. The good news is that persons in need of shelter and a permanent home in the city of Philadelphia, we know how to end homelessness. The clear success from 2007 to 2014 shows that we've had a 30% reduction for people considered homeless, those in emergency shelter, transitional housing, temporary drop-in centers, or on the street. And we've had an 80% increase in housing opportunities for homeless individuals and families, from 3,047 units to 5,000 units of housing. The success in lowering the number of homeless persons has been effective, even as Philadelphia's median household income was almost 8% lower in 2013 than in 2008, and the city had the 5th largest annual unemployment rate for the same period. In 2015, January through December, the Office of Supportive Housing expects to have resources to provide permanent affordable housing to an additional 500 individuals and families. And I should just note for the record that since July 1, 2014, we have housed 736 people or families in permanent housing, 408 in transitional housing, and since 2013, 862 veterans. We will end veterans' homelessness in the city of Philadelphia by November 11th. We've also housed 278 chronically homeless individuals. So why is the news not always good? And the reason why is because the numbers keep growing. OSH has been able to accomplish this with some key initiatives: the Housing Retention Program, where we have provided prevention services to people who are facing eviction or needing security deposits for new housing of 436 people, as well as the assistance we've done with mortgage foreclosure. But on any given day, our system is completely full. It is operating at capacity. And on any given day, we have an average of about 30 families a day who come to the Apple Tree Family Center looking for housing because they are doubled up, staying with friends, in many cases kind of couch surfing with children. Housing First is a strategy to move persons into a Housing First unit that can support chronically homeless persons that have behavioral health and other barriers that have resulted in multiple incidents of street homelessness. Rapid rehousing for families and transitional housing offers additional support services. We have over 5,000 units now of permanent supportive housing, and yet there is still an outstanding need. Why will Philadelphia likely see a growth in the number of individuals and families who fall into the OSH homeless system? It's very simple. Families and individuals lack adequate resources to assist with housing costs or adequate income to close the gap. And for those who are at our front door seeking shelter, there is a minimal opportunity to earn, which leads to a lack of hope. 32% of Philadelphia's working age population was not in the labor force in 2013. U.S. Conference of Mayors 2014 Hunger and Homelessness Report estimates that the demand for emergency shelter was unmet in FY14 and will likely show the same for FY15. Philadelphia reported 48% of the families presenting at our front door requesting shelter went unmet. That's higher than 20 of the 25 cities participating in this report. What are the challenges? Federal funding has been reduced since 2012, 45% in all programs. Pennsylvania eliminated the General Assistance Program in August 2012. If only 1% of the individuals who lost General Assistance support asked for emergency housing, the city would not be able to accommodate them. OSH operates at full capacity on any given day. Communities across Philadelphia have opposed the development of programs and facilities that are needed to successfully end homelessness. Leadership from all parts of our communities is needed to help locate new opportunities for housing for people who have no housing. We're working closely with our partners, the Office of Housing, and certainly our largest source of permanent housing for homeless families is the Philadelphia Housing Authority, and we hope to be able to continue to prevent more families from ever getting to the homeless system through our prevention programs that are funded by the Housing Trust Fund and other sources. Thank you for the opportunity, and I too will be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jeremiah, thank you.
Good afternoon.
And I want all of you to know that he was willing to extend the service if we didn't have our sign. So we want all of you to know that PHA is always there for us. Thank you, Mr. Jeremiah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell, Councilwoman Keanu Sanchez, Councilman Grinley, members of the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless. I am Kelvin Jeremiah, the President and CEO of the Philadelphia Housing Authority. PHA serves over 80,000 low-income Philadelphians, making it the fourth largest housing authority in the United States and the largest landlord in Pennsylvania. PHA owns and manages over 15,000 public housing units at 57 developments and scattered site locations throughout the city. PHA also administers the Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8, which serves over 17,000 low-income households in Philadelphia. PHA's annual operating and capital budgets is nearly $400 million, which supports its assisted housing programs and a staff of approximately 1,400. Like most other public housing authorities, the majority of PHA's nearly $400 million operating and capital budgets, 93%, come from the federal government, while approximately 6.4% comes from rents. The balance, approximately 0.6%, comes from grants and investment earnings. PHA not only provides housing assistance through its public housing and HCV programs, but also offers various home ownership opportunities that would otherwise be unachievable in Philadelphia's current real estate market. The agency also provides $8 million to support a myriad of programs and services aimed at helping our residents become self-sufficient. PHA is committed to providing affordable housing opportunities to the city's most vulnerable populations, focusing primarily on those in the very low and extremely low income categories. This refers to households with incomes that are 31 to 50% or equal to or less than 30% of the median family income, respectively. To illustrate the significance of housing affordability, the average annual income at a PHA household is approximately $14,000, meaning that a monthly rent of over $350 becomes a cost burden. There is an incredible and increasing demand for affordable housing in Philadelphia. With low unit turnaround that averages just over 400 units per year, applicants can be on PHA's wait list for nearly a decade. Currently, the PHA public housing programs is admitting only those applicants who are seniors and persons with documented disabilities. The waiting list for HCV is also closed. As of March 2015, PHA is housing applicants who applied in 2005 for public housing and HCV in 2010, making the wait approximately 10 years long. Historically, PHA capped its Section 8 program at 14,850 vouchers, although we had the capacity to serve far more families. However, since 2013, PHA has removed the HCV cap in order to provide housing assistance to more families in need. As a result, PHA has increased participation in Section 8 from 14,620 in 2012 to 17,343 today, an increase of over 2,700 new families and a new high for PHA. As of October 1999, pursuant to the Fair Cloth limit, PHA had 21,739 public housing units. For more than a decade, PHA sought to develop highly concentrated and obsolete housing sites, which were replaced with low-rise units and townhomes. Although not required at the time, PHA did not seek one-for-one replacement, that is, replacing each unit demolished with a new one, which resulted in a loss of nearly 6,500 affordable housing units in Philadelphia. The reduction in our statutory housing cap also resulted in less funding coming from the federal government to Philadelphia. Consequently, PHA has implemented new financial policies, budgeting practices, and established what we're calling the 6 in 5 program, designed to add back 6,000 affordable housing units over the next 5 years. These actions are aimed at reversing a decade-long reduction in affordable housing units. There is an existing pipeline of planned projects scheduled for completion over the next several years, including comprehensive revitalization plans for Norris Apartments and Sharswood-Blumberg community in North Philadelphia under the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, which will add approximately 1,400 new units of affordable housing when complete. Additionally, the conclusion of development at new replacement housing at Queens Row and Queen Lane in Germantown, and construction of new units at Oakdale and Gardner Street in Strawberry Mansion will add 117 new affordable housing units to PHA's portfolio this year. Even with PHA's aggressive development efforts, there is still a significant gap between the supply and demand for affordable housing. PHA remains committed to increasing and improving quality, affordable housing opportunities by collaborating with public-private partners to increase PHA's leverage of its limited resources. PHA has issued a solicitation in conjunction with the city for unit-based subsidy and project-based vouchers in developing affordable housing. This solicitation alone has already generated over 500 new affordable housing units for the city. PHA is especially focused on increasing quality housing options that support high-priority populations such as veterans, persons with disabilities, and those experiencing homelessness. PHA already has a highly successful partnership with the City of Philadelphia Office of Supportive Housing, which assists up to 500 homeless families and individuals annually through a mix of HCV and public housing. In fact, because of PHA's coordinated partnership with the city, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Department of Veterans Affairs, Philadelphia is on track to end veterans homelessness by Veterans Day 2015. Additional strategies to ensure the long-term financial viability and preservation of PHA's existing housing portfolio includes the recent approval of an application for conversion of approximately 3,000 units to project-based assistance through the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program at HUD. The RAD program provides an opportunity to expand public-private partnerships for the development of affordable housing in the city. However, these development plans depend on the availability of sufficient funding and other external factors in order to come to fruition. These factors are not entirely within PHA's control and may impact the agency's ability to fulfill its plans. As I stated earlier, 93% of PHA's annual budget of nearly $400 million comes from HUD, and the majority of this budget has been used to transform communities through participation in the Move Into Work program. PHA's continued participation in the existing MTW program is critical to ensure the continuation of affordable housing construction activities because it gives PHA funding flexibility and authority it needs. However, HUD has proposed sweeping changes that would drastically alter the funding formula for PHA, risking a loss of $84 million annually in funding eligibility. For our low-income public housing program alone, PHA projects a loss in federal funding of nearly $500 million over the 10-year program of the MTW agreement. This, I believe, is wholly unacceptable as it will have a severe impact on our housing authority operation as well as our assisted residents. The economic damage that would result from the loss of PHA's existing MTW agreement is catastrophic and would paralyze the agency. PHA would be unable to provide the same quality of service and level of programming that residents expect. This potential loss would also severely hurt the city and all but cease PHA's efforts to increase the supply of affordable housing and possibly result in elimination of additional affordable housing units. PHA would like to acknowledge the recent action of the Philadelphia City Council in passing a resolution expressing their support of PHA's continued participation in the MTW program through Council Resolution 1500357. Members of the committee, it is my view that the affordable housing crisis that confronts this great city is also an issue of deep-seated structural poverty. The persistence of poverty in this great city results from conscious policy decisions that need to change to improve the future of the city. This is possible with the right political support. This very hearing is a step in that direction. The city must change its approach on wages, access to healthcare, education, employment and job training, and housing in order to eliminate poverty. Philadelphia, like so many other cities across America, has struggled with what to do with affordable housing. Affordable housing once relegated poor people to concentrated areas, which became breeding grounds for crime, drugs, and poverty, a cycle that became nearly impossible to break. One of the goals must be to transition people from government-subsidized housing, helping them to become self-sufficient in private homes. Achieving that goal takes more than putting roofs over people's heads. They need education, training, jobs, yes, jobs, that pay well enough so they can support themselves. Solving the poverty problem will go a long way to solve the affordable housing crisis. The high cost of housing results in families not being able to save for a home or invest in their children's education. It puts good neighborhoods out of the reach for poor and working class families. There is a national capital backlog of $26 billion in repairs at all of the nation's public housing authorities. Due to this disrepair, the U.S. is losing approximately 10,000 public housing units each year. At PHA alone, we have $1 billion in capital backlog, but only receive approximately $45 million towards our growing capital and maintenance needs. As the Secretary of HUD recently observed, the cold, hard truth is that the federal government dollars are scarce and will not be able to fully address these issues without a comprehensive, collaborative strategy. This includes partnership with the city, state, and federal governments, along with private, nonprofit, and philanthropic partners. Madam Chair, members of the committee, across the country, public housing authorities like PHA have been reaching out to their elected officials in their city and state governments to support affordable housing. The truth is, we rely almost exclusively on the federal government for funding, a source that has become increasingly unreliable and unpredictable. There are many great programs and leaders here in Philadelphia and across the country doing wonderful work to address the unacceptable conditions of affordable housing. Many of our neighbors endure devastating conditions that persist year after year, generation after generation. It is quite obvious that there is a connection between the housing crisis and entrenched poverty. This can only be addressed by a comprehensive, holistic approach to addressing the underlying issues. These problems must be addressed together in order to solve the root of this dilemma. None of us can do it alone. It is time for us to be a united front and engage with urgency because the future of this great city, I believe, depends on it. This is why I believe that the partnerships we have established and continue to build upon are so critical, but can only continue if PHA keeps its current funding structure. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this important topic. It is an honor, and I look forward to working with you to address this important housing issue. I'd be happy to answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you very much. Let me thank Herb Wetzel, too, who's a member of PHA, representing council, and who has worked very, very hard on this committee and on this hearing so that we may be able to have this full discussion. Let me also thank each of you. This is the part of my work. I love being chair of education, but this is the part of my work that I love the most. And let me thank each of you for your folks on your team. I've worked with them, many of them, for many, many years. What's the scripture say? I was young once and now I'm old. But I want to thank you for the teams that you represent and all of you. I remember many years ago when I thought that we would end homelessness in my lifetime, but I've since had to look at it holistically and realize all of those things you referenced, Mr. Jeremiah, about job training, about the partnership. All of us have to have the all branches of government working together. Has to happen if we are to make a difference. I remember, and then I'm finished, and Councilwoman Sanchez, you're next. I remember many, many years ago, during the days of Lucian Blackwell, when there was a young woman named Tanya Heyman. Some of you may remember her. And Tanya Heyman ended up in a wonderful program called New Keys, OSH. And New Keys was wonderful because we met her, I don't know, Lucian Blackwell met her during the days of himself and Dave Richardson, and they met her many years ago when she was abused in the Youth Study Center, many years ago. And I only remember two directors of Youth Study Center, and his name was Eugene Montone, and he was removed, and they found she was being abused, and it was so long ago that basically she was a runaway. in those days, it really meant something. And after being abused, she ended up being a drug addict, lived in crack houses, ended up on drugs and all of that. And finally, we met her when she was about 13, and finally, when she passed away, some of you will remember her, at about the age of 48, she was in a New Keys home, and I was always grateful because that's such a wonderful program where you move in and you are trained how to live as you learn how to live in your own apartment. So I was always grateful because when we had her ceremony, a funeral and all that for her, we knew that she was on her way to doing better in spite of all her lifetime of trouble. And so we were always grateful for that. So I learned a long time ago that it will take all of us, from your side, from government, people in the community, and all the groups who are here today, to try to make a difference in unifying so that maybe one day we can get rid of this problem. I mean, absolutely, in life we should have people only on the street for a short time because they had a fire or they were evicted or they had an argument with somebody in their home, and maybe one day we'll see that happen. But for all of you and the work that you do, we are grateful. God bless you and thank you. Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to maintain the protocols of what we were looking to accomplish today versus where we take this conversation. And I too want to thank all of the stakeholders who are here today in one form or another reporting out what our success has been, but also some of our challenges. And I will refrain from asking a whole lot of questions until we get the report back out of where we want to go. But I would be remiss if I didn't set forth some challenges, that I see and that I want to challenge the departments to look at, so when they come back and report out to us, we can look at it. We do have a structural problem about our housing agencies and some federal and state regulations which they have to abide by. I think we've come to a crossroads where we really need to look at who are some of the other federal and state strategic partners that need to be at the table with us here. I think many times, and I've watched this council in the 7 years that I've been here and under your leadership as chair, I think in the city we have had and have created a political will to look at things differently. But I think as part of the conversation, when we do get the ideas about where do we want to go, I know that many of the advocates have been very thoughtful, particularly during this mayoral campaign, to put forth some issues, and I think that conversation is hugely important because I do think that the next mayor is going to have to be even more proactive about what we do, because I do think we also have a lot of opportunities. I think one of the things that through the council's CSI initiative around data, we now have data that shows us what the challenges are, but also what the opportunities are. We have different tools in our toolbox that we didn't have 10 or 20 years ago. We have a strategic plan from the land bank that identifies, in districts like mine, 5,200 housing opportunities. How are those 5,200 housing opportunities aligned with PHA and what the Office of Housing and Community Development do? That's where we're moving to. And I think that in this conversation that we're about to undertake, and hopefully it will not be a long conversation because, as Mr. Jeremiah says, we have a lot of talented people and we all know what we need to do, but we have to make some choices about how do you ensure that we do housing preservation to deal with the backlog. And let's talk about that very painful decision about we have to do a more proactive backlog. How do we better equip our basic systems program to leverage that work more appropriately? And how does PHA support some of that work as we move forward to try to keep people in their homes? Despite our challenges, Philadelphia still enjoys a 58 to 60% home ownership rate. We need to keep that. We need to be deliberate about that. We need to make sure people can stay in their homes. And then we need to make sure, you know, I think some of you reported out the chronically poor. That is a reality that we need to face. How we structure and fund these opportunities, that is a sector of the community that is not going to go away. And those are the people more likely to end up in the other systems, homeless and so forth. And how do we make sure that women and families do not end up in that? So I'm going to refrain from asking what will be thousands of questions and put out the challenge. If we had to do zero-based budgeting, if we had to look at what regulations we control and the ones that we don't, that we need to modify, what would we be doing better in your systems? We now have an opportunity to lay forth a framework for a new mayor coming in of 8 years of being able to articulate a better strategy. We have the data, we know what works, we know what may not work as much. What are the restrictions? I hope in this particular budget, my priority is going to be, how do we get more general operating support? How do we free up more money to be able to put more money on the ground? Obviously, I have my preferred places around preservation and other things, but I think that through this committee, I'd like to see us get to a place where we can be very deliberate about it, and that we could be very measured about it year to year, so that when we have to talk about how do you place some of these services where there is a challenge about placing some of these services throughout the city, that we can have a frank conversation about, we're not bringing in a service into your district, we're providing a service for the residents who live here. That these services, as controversial as they are necessities to make a more balanced city. I think we can do that. I think there is more political will than there's ever been to deal with that. What I haven't seen yet is the willingness for folks to say, zero-based budgeting, if we had to start from scratch, what does it look like? Because everybody's protecting their turf. I protect my turf. I'm going to protect my 7th, and when I protect my 7th, hopefully I make the city better. We need to get to that place, because we no longer have the type of resources that we had before, but I think we have smarter resources, and I think we have better tools than we've ever had before. My first job in community development, I was 15 years old at Hunting Park CDC. The world has changed a lot. Some of us have not changed with that world. I see us doing exactly some of the same things we did then, and the world has changed. So I want to put forth that challenge and really thank, again, the partners who keep us to task. And I look forward to this next 8 years, us really being able to say, this is what our priorities are, notwithstanding all the good that all those other services provide. How are we best going to leverage what the council president likes to call neighborhoods of choice, what I like to call opportunities for everybody to live in an affordable and an accessible community for all. And that means diversity at all levels. That means walkable, safe neighborhoods. And I believe we can get there. And I wouldn't be in this council if I didn't think we could. So again, thank you, and I will respect the protocols that we want to have and utilizing this as a report out, but I really want to put out that challenge to all of us about how do we keep this conversation going and really set up that framework with PHA and the partnership we have, HERB, the Land Bank, and others to get it done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Let me thank you, all of you, for the excellent work you do. Thank you. We appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the scale of the problem. Johnny Doe homeowner, who we will ask to speak first, Laura Weinbaum, Project Home, Rick Sauer, PACDC, Jim Womer, resident of Emlyn Arms, and Karen Collins, WCRB. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Johnny Doe?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? You're welcome. I got these. Oh. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Councilwoman
Good afternoon.
Blackwell and supporting staff. I'm here today as a representative or to testify as to what Building Together Philadelphia came into my home and did for me. They came in and they...
Excuse me, before you begin, please identify yourself.
Oh,
for
I
the record.
apologize. My name is Johnny Doe, and I am a homeowner in the 1900 block of Marshall Street. Sorry about that. And again, Building Together Philadelphia is just such an awesome program. They were truly a blessing to me, where they actually came and my basement was damp, where the water actually was just coming in when the rain. They came in and they did dry lock the basement. They put a humidifier down in there. I had carpet in my dining room that really needed to come up. And they came in, they took the carpet up, they put the floors down. There was work that needed to be done in the kitchen. They did the kitchen, work on my roof. They did that. All of the work that they did, they allowed me to continue to stay in my house. So it was not for a redeveloper to come in and take my home away from me, but they actually helped me restore my home to make it more safe and more healthy for my daughter and I to live in. They also did my sister house also, which was my parents' house. So the house that my sister lived in, there was like 4 generations in that particular house. Again, they were able to allow us to stay there because I'm one of those 58% homeowners that it's important for me to stay where I'm at. I cannot afford, with my financial situation, to move anywhere else. So with programs like Rebuilding Together Philadelphia, they are just an awesome program with all of the volunteers that come in to help them. They come in and put quality work and quality material into the home. My energy bill literally went down this winter because they put a door and a screen door on my home. Things that I know that I would have to have taken care of, and I probably would have at some point, but with this program, they came in, they did it, they put quality work in there, they put quality material in there, they came in, the volunteers that came in and worked with them was just awesome. So to me, I just feel as though that I was truly blessed. This program itself is just a blessing to anyone who can become a part of it. So as much funding that can go towards this program for homeowners, we need it. We definitely need it. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Weinbaum, and I'm the Vice President for Public Affairs and Strategic Initiatives at Project Home, a housing and services provider striving to end and prevent homelessness in Philadelphia. I'm presenting on behalf of Sister Mary Scullion, who regretfully is unable to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to offer remarks on behalf of the Project Home community, addressing the need for affordable housing for people who are homeless. I'm joined today by members of the Project Home community who are interested in being an ongoing part of this conversation. As you know, Philadelphia continues to struggle with the convergence of 3 issues, and as you've now heard from at least 3 or 4 folks, more than 1 out of every 4 residents lives in poverty, 1 in 5 live with disabilities, and there's only 1 affordable home available for every 3 extremely poor households. The need for affordable and permanent supportive housing for people living on extremely low incomes is as great as ever. The PHA waiting list is longer than 10 years. The Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services doesn't even maintain a wait list for people who don't meet certain criteria because the demand is overwhelming. Each year, homeless outreach organizations engage more than 5,500 unique individuals living on the street, in cars, train and bus stations, abandoned buildings, and other places not meant for human habitation. About 14,000 people access shelter each year. At a given point in time, the city estimates an average of 650 people living on the street, roughly 300 in Center City. While the need is great in many, many areas, looking ahead, we believe there are 4 specific areas of focus: homeless veterans, vulnerable chronic street homeless individuals, homeless young adults, and people who are homeless by virtue of addictions. I have a section on veterans in here that I'll actually skip because I think it was covered pretty well by Melissa and Marie, but suffice to say that with resources, the city actually has a plan to achieve its goal of ending veteran homelessness by this coming Veterans Day in November, which is outstanding and audacious, and we would love to see that same model applied to these other areas. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development defines chronically homeless individuals as those who have been homeless for a year or longer or experienced 4 episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years and have a disability. This group is roughly 20% of the homeless population, but it consumes roughly 60% of the known resources. Along with communities across the country, Philadelphia is working to end homelessness for those who are most vulnerable and those who are experiencing chronic street homelessness. By redesigning systems to serve this population, Philadelphia hopes to meet the goals of Opening Doors, the federal strategic plan to end homelessness. In 2011, Project Home, Bethesda Project, Horizon House, and Pathways to Housing formed a collaborative to permanently house the roughly 1,000 most vulnerable persons living on our streets. Working with the city and other providers, at the end of FY14, 411 members of this target group were permanently housed, and 200 more were staying indoors in non-permanent housing. 90% of the housed individuals have retained housing for a year or more, and during that same time, the Center City street count has dropped from 379 to 312. I'll next talk about young adults. According to the 2014 annual homeless assessment report submitted to Congress, roughly 200,000 youth and children up to the age of 24 were homeless on a single night in 2014 across the country. Recent research by Dennis Culhane shows that vulnerable young adults, especially those transitioning from foster care and other services, may be the fastest growing group, needing interventions to stabilize, educate, employ, and empower them. Each year, an estimated 1,000 young adults age out of foster care in Pennsylvania. We also know that LGBTQ-identified young adults experience homelessness at an alarmingly disproportionate rate, as much as 40%. Federal research suggests that gaps in the support services young adults receive to transition successfully to independent living are major contributors to this issue. Each year, approximately 45 people die while homeless in Philadelphia, the majority from addiction-related causes. Expanding street homeless outreach services to Kensington has shown us how vast the problems of homelessness caused by addiction are in our city, and our work with the Homeless Death Review team has shown that this is truly a matter of life and death. We believe that our best bet for addressing addiction is pairing creative use of Medicaid with other resources such as housing, healthcare, education, and employment. We have a few recommendations that we're throwing in here, even though we get that this hearing is mostly about the need. First, we can maximize our impact through transparency and collaboration among PHA, providers, and the city, which I understand is one of the possible outcomes of these hearings. Second, we need to not only use existing resources better, but explore models from other places to bring new resources to bear in housing people with special needs. The homeless population is aging. Supportive housing providers need local flexibility in Medicaid financing to meet the population's unique needs. We need to address problems of behavioral health, including both mental illness and addiction, by pairing creative use of Medicaid with housing, healthcare, education, and employment. Finally, we must continue to create affordable housing. Doubling the Housing Trust Fund will leverage state and federal resources to meet the demand. We appreciate your review and consideration of these vital issues and are happy to answer any questions at this time or in the future. We hope to help Philadelphia create neighborhood amenities that not only house the most vulnerable, but contribute to the quality of life for our whole community, because none of us are home until all of us are home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sauer.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and other members of council, and thanks for the opportunity to testify. My name is Rick Sauer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Association of Community Development Corporations. PACDC is a membership association of more than 100 organizations, including 50 CDCs from across the city, that work to advance equitable development, including building and preserving affordable homes. As we all know, Philadelphia is a growing city now for change, and redevelopment and revitalization is transforming places like Center City, University City, and some of the surrounding neighborhoods. But these positive trends cannot obscure the fact that tens of thousands of our residents are not benefiting from this renewal. They struggle with housing that is substandard, unaffordable, unstable, or simply unavailable. They struggle because rents are rising and their income is falling. They struggle because Philadelphia is not coming close to addressing the need for decent, affordable, and accessible homes in quality neighborhoods. We can and we must do more. As was referenced earlier, according to a recent study from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, the city has a deficit of nearly 70,000 affordable rental homes available to people earning less than 30% of area median income, the poorest of our neighbors who earn approximately $23,400 or less a year for a family of four. These households pay an average of $528 per month more than they can afford on housing costs, leaving little left over for transportation, food, medical care, and other basic necessities, and straining our already inadequate social safety network. Unfortunately, the trends are discouraging. The Federal Reserve study also shows the number of affordable and available rental units for our poorest residents has dropped by 9 percentage points over the last 5 years. And residential income segregation also rose in Philadelphia over the last 30 years, more than in places like New York, Boston, Chicago, DC, Los Angeles, according to a recent analysis from the Pew Research Center. CDCs and other developers work as fast as they can to build new affordable units, as well as preserve existing affordable homes to keep people in their homes, thus reducing the demand for new construction. But as you'll hear from PACDC's members that will testify today, the number of applications for funding to develop new affordable units is always 2 to 3 times greater than what resources can support. Vacancy rates at affordable housing developments are virtually unheard of, and residents are clamoring for access to housing preservation programs that have waiting lists that are years long. CDCs are drastically limited by available resources. As was pointed out earlier, funding from Washington, D.C. from the Community Development Block Grant and home programs has been cut by more than $26 million since 2007. And out of our projected CDBG allocation for the forthcoming year, more than 40% of it, or about $20 million, will be spent on city staff, and thus is not available directly to do work on the ground. State funding for affordable homes has also been cut. And while the Philadelphia Housing Trust Fund provides a vital source of financing for home development, preservation, and homeless prevention, it only generates now about $11 million per year. And we're fortunate we're even at that level, thanks in part to Councilman Greenlee and City Council that unanimously approved a $5 increase in the mortgage and deed recording fee last year to bump up the revenue slightly for the trust fund. We know that the federal government and state government needs to do more. But in addition to that, going forward, Philadelphia's policymakers must also make a much bigger commitment in local resources to more adequately address our affordable housing needs. We'll share our specific thoughts about potential sources at the next hearing. I've often heard it said that Philadelphia does not have a housing affordability problem, but that we have an income problem. but you cannot separate income from housing and policy decisions about creating a stronger, healthier Philadelphia. Research shows that when poor children live in economically diverse neighborhoods with good access to amenities and educational opportunities, their chances of moving into the middle class are significantly improved. So if we want to break the generational cycle of poverty and move kids into the middle class, we need more affordable homes in high-quality neighborhoods. And if we want incomes to rise, we need a prepared and educated workforce. But the data shows that children who struggle with housing instability have poor educational outcomes. We need more affordable homes to give stability to families that face chronic homelessness. Many CDCs and other nonprofits also attack the problems associated with poverty through programs to improve outcomes on health, education, employment, community engagement. So the CDC field needs more resources to leverage the offer of a decent, affordable home in ways that connect our disadvantaged neighbors to resources they need to jobs and job training, physical and mental health care, continuing education, and other services. As you'll hear today from other witnesses, the gap between the needs of Philadelphians and available resources for decent, affordable homes is enormous. And that's why Philadelphia needs a comprehensive housing strategy that looks deeply at the problem, considers all the available solutions, and charts a long-range, multi-year path towards significantly reducing the need. In the short term, we need to at least double resources to the Philadelphia Housing Trust Fund to begin replacing funds cut by the state and federal governments. And as Philadelphia emerges from years of decline and enjoys development boom that is making national headlines, now is the time to make sure that growth is leveraged for more affordable homes and equitable development. We look forward to working with City Council, the Nutter administration, and the next mayor's administration to begin the hard but critical work toward creating a more equitable Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, neighbors. Those who are concerned with our city and our housing situation, I thank you for being here at this hearing. My name is Karen Collins. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I'm here today as a disabled mother of two in need of decent, affordable housing, a right that has been denied to me for the past 24 years. I'm also here as a member of Women's Community Revitalization Project, a 28-year-old nonprofit organization dedicated to building women's leadership and building affordable, accessible housing in Philadelphia. The Women's Community Revitalization Project is a member of the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities, a 35-member coalition of labor, faith, and community groups that are running a Development Without Displacement campaign to put more money in the city's housing trust fund. In the early 90s, I had jobs with the Department of Defense, Provident National Bank, and the City of Philadelphia as a computer operator. Unfortunately, with all of these jobs, I got caught in the downsizing and wound up with no employment. I became homeless and held on as long as I could without a job. I lived in my car looking up and down the East Coast for a job and wound up in a homeless shelter. While I was in the shelter, I decided to redo me, and I went to cooking school. I graduated out of cooking school and got a job in the casinos of Atlantic City, where I had my first child. In 1999, I got hit by a car and because of the trauma I suffered, I became permanently disabled. When I returned to Philadelphia in 2005, I could not find a wheelchair-accessible apartment for women and children. With a Section 8 voucher in hand, I finally found a house. It was not wheelchair accessible, but I took it because it had what I needed for my family. It was really hard for me to give up my power wheelchair. Now I'm limited in my ability to get around, and I have continued to look for a wheelchair-accessible house. One time I was contacted by PHA. I thought PHA was going to give the disabled community new homes. In 2007, they took 83 people in need of wheelchair-accessible housing on a tour of PHA homes. At the end, we found out that the homes we saw, 6 different styles of housing, were the only homes that were available for us. Wheelchair accessible people, 6 houses for 83 people. To this day, I'm still waiting to hear from PHA if there are homes for me. Since 2007, they haven't called me back for any housing, and I'm on every list. I can either find apartments that are accessible, but I don't have the income and they don't have Section 8, or I can find affordable apartments, but they're not accessible. There's always a barrier one way or another. Now I'm in West Philadelphia where I'm surrounded by gentrification. We have neighbors being pushed out of the neighborhood because of increased housing costs. In West Philadelphia, between 2000 and 2012, the price of a home has increased by 98%. Meanwhile, over 54% of the renters in my district pay more than they can afford in rent. I can see the effects of rising costs throughout my neighborhood. One neighbor used to work part-time as a nurse and could afford her apartment until 2 years ago when the landlord raised her rent. Now she has to work 7 days a week. There are a few three-story houses in my neighborhood that were abandoned and then rehabbed into apartments. But every 6 months, the lawn gets filled with the evicted tenants' belongings because they can't make the rent. While I like seeing the new development coming towards my neighborhood, none of the new developments are making wheelchair-accessible housing. I would move in a minute if I could find an accessible, affordable 3-bedroom house for my family. It's important to document the needs for affordable housing. The Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities is proposing real solutions too. The Housing Trust Fund is an excellent tool for building affordable and accessible housing. We have released a report to highlight the loss of affordable housing in Philadelphia. We are proposing to increase the Housing Trust Fund by $12 million by passing an anti-speculation bill. We are asking City Council to vote for this legislation when it is introduced so we can have more accessible, affordable homes in Philadelphia. I thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman, members of City Council. My name is Jim Walmer. Although I've been privileged to advocate on behalf of Philadelphia's homeless for the past decade or so, I want to make it very clear that today I'm talking about my personal housing story and not on behalf of any organization. I decided to testify because I could put something more of a name and a face on the pursuit of affordable housing and the shortages and also the facts and figures you've been given about this problem in this great city. So since my time's very limited, I want to focus on exactly 3 aspects of the pursuit of affordable housing, that being the time it took, the costs, and the outcome, which is kind of interesting. Regarding the time, I became homeless in June of 2002, and I moved into a Philadelphia Housing Authority apartment in April of 2012. That is a period of exactly 118 months, or 2 months short of 10 years. That could have been a longer period of time, but for the efforts of one Marcella McGuire, the Director of Homeless Services of the city's Office of Behavioral Health. As I understand it, back in 2010, she reached an agreement with the Housing Authority under which PHA agreed to make some apartments available to homeless individuals with a history of mental illness. I appear to have benefited from that program. Since I have since disagreed on more than one occasion with Marcella McGuire, I want to take this opportunity to thank her personally for her efforts and to assure her I know of at least 2 other individuals also with this type of problem who've also benefited from the program. Now, as to the actual cost of moving into a PHA apartment, it was rather more than I anticipated and worked out to be just under $2,000. Before becoming homeless, I had lived and worked in Philadelphia for some years. I realized there were expenses in moving between apartments from one to another, and I've been saving some money from the supplemental security income I had received after being adjudicated disabled. The surprise expense of moving into a PHA apartment was the requirement to purchase your own refrigerator. First time I heard about that PHA requirement was after being shown the apartment just before signing the lease. I certainly would have appreciated knowing about that somewhat earlier, but I think that's the kind of thing that can be handled in a letter of acknowledgement by PHA. I'm even more thankful, though, that first of all, I could borrow the money from a friend to pay for the refrigerator and that I could repay her. And I'm even more thankful that I was not receiving the kind of meager benefits that a household with children would receive under the federal Temporary Aid to Needy Families program. As for the outcome, that became decidedly more mixed within 2 years. And it seems that in mid-2014, the U.S. Congress decided that if you were not paying for heat and did not get LIHEAP benefits, then you did not need much in benefits under the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps. So in June 2014, without much ado, my food stamps were reduced some 90%. And that required me to make a number of interesting changes. Today, I spend 3 days a week simply scrounging or scrambling to get foodstuffs. 1 day a week I spend at the local food bank. Another day is a trip to Center City where I shop at your local dollar stores. The third day varies considerably, but may include a trip to a supermarket because I still need things like coffee, coffee creamer, and occasionally even such things as peanut butter. But it can also be satisfied by shopping at a pharmacy, sometimes when they have sales. So my diet depends not on what my doctors think is appropriate, but on what I can get from the food bank and what I can afford to buy. So in summary, that's my affordable housing story. First, it can take you 10 years to get it. Secondly, it can cost you $2,000 to move in. And third, once you get there, you're going to be in a scramble just to get food. But as I've told the other senior citizens and residents of the Emlyn Arms apartment project and complex of PHA, remember, my friends, things can always get worse. And thank you, members of council, for this opportunity to tell you my story about affordable housing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Romer. We appreciate sharing with us your life and your struggles, and thank you. We're glad that you are surviving. Councilwoman Bass?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wilmer, I believe you're in my district at Emlyn Arms in the 8th District, and so I just wanted to,
That's
number
correct.
one, thank you for coming down today and also for sharing your story. Can you talk a little bit more about, you know, it took 10 years to be able for you, just about 10 years, for you to be able to find this unit. And then so there was no information provided beforehand in terms of what the expense or the cost would be to you, provided from PHA?
What I was looking for was like a letter of acknowledgement that would spell out, for example,
Sure.
this would be my solution if I were PHA.
Okay.
Acknowledge the fact you've got the application, spell out what are the duties of the applicant, like keeping PHA informed of changes of address promptly. Secondly, warning you about some of the move-in expenses. Some can be anticipated. For example, a security deposit, the first month's rent in advance, that's very traditional in our city.
Sure.
But going beyond that, you may have to buy one or more air conditioners. Suppose I have been a household with several dependent children. with multiple bedrooms. That would certainly be required in our climate, to have to make sure the kids are ready for school in the summertime,
Absolutely.
if that's where they're going.
Okay. So, so you said duties to PHA would include, the expected costs and, notification if you plan on moving. Was there something else you said before that?
I would emphasize what are the basic costs, what is the responsibility as an applicant to keep PHA notified promptly of any changes of address.
Don't forget that refrigerator.
And that refrigerator price tag, yeah.
Expected costs, yeah. Okay. Because what, Councilwoman in Blackwell and I can do is, pose this as something that really should be a standard. I think it makes perfect sense and, common sense. And surprisingly, I haven't thought of it before, but we'd be happy to, bring that to their attention and make sure that it becomes a part of an application process. It's very simple.
It's basically an acknowledgement letter. We've got your application. Get ready that at some point we're going to be in touch with you, but in the meantime, here's your obligations. Here are your potential expenses.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Collins, also, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story in terms of the difficulty in finding wheelchair-accessible units. And so, as a district member, as I see building and construction that happens in my district, hearing your experience really does help me reinforce when builders want to come and build affordable units that this is obviously something we need them to see do not just, a couple of units, but, on a much more substantive basis. They need to have, a number of units that really are going to address the crisis that exists for people who are disabled. So thank you so much.
I'm not the only disabled mother there is out there.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times they think disabled, well, you only need a one bedroom.
One bedroom, and you can go in the senior tower or wherever you want to go.
Right.
Somebody will place you. But I got children.
Right. How many bedrooms do you think you need?
I need 3 bedrooms.
You need a 3-bedroom?
My dream that I always agitate people with, if they ever hit the lottery, remember me and get me a 4-bedroom ranch, handicapped accessible, please. They say, why you need 4 bedrooms? I may need an assistant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Good to know. Good to know. But I thank you for sharing your story also. It's very important to keep this information at the forefront of our thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Housing Preservation and Rehabilitation. Stephanie Selden, Rebuilding Together in Philadelphia. You've already been praised, as you know. Kiki Bolander, Healthy Row House Project. Majija Rashid, Nicetown CDC. And Carrie Rathman, Habitat for Humanity. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. You may begin in any order.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and Councilwoman Bass. I wanted to add one thing to what Ms. Johnny Doe said. First, let me state my name for the record. I'm Stephanie Selden, Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Philadelphia. First of all, Ms. Doe wanted to apologize for having to leave. She runs a daycare, and part of what she does is pick up children from school, so she had to run. But while Ms. Doe spoke at length about the repairs and how Rebuilding Together was able to help her, what she didn't mention was that the damp basement was growing mold, and that was directly below her daycare. And I know that my colleague is going to talk at more length about the health impact of homes and the situations that we face. Luckily, Ms. Doe's situation was actually quite good for what we see. Sadly, we have seen many families who have really deteriorating conditions, including families who have been using buckets for toilets, who have not only a little bit of mold in their basement, but basement full of mold, who have no heat. So while Ms. Doe we are grateful to her for coming and telling her story, I just need to let council know that her situation was on the mild side. Rebuilding Together Philadelphia, as Councilwoman Blackwell knows from having visited our builds multiple times, renovates the homes of low-income families by using volunteers. Since our beginning in 1988, we have renovated 1,300 homes, and we renovate 70 homes a year. I was especially pleased to be invited by Chairwoman Blackwell. We started in West Philadelphia, and we continue to do work in there every single spring. And this year, in fact, we celebrated our 100th home in Mantua. And want to thank, among the people here in the audience, Andy Frischkoff for his support from LISC for helping us with that. But with 70 homeowners a year and 4,000 folks on the basic system repair wait list, we are only touching the tip of the iceberg. And while we are here today to express need, I did want to point out to council that the housing preservation dollars in year 41, it's going down. It's going down from $300,000 a year to $244,000 a year. And given the 58 to 60% home ownership rate in the city, even $300,000 seems like a paltry sum to be spending on renovating homes in the city of Philadelphia. The only other point I wanted to make was that from our work in the area in Eastern North, where Johnny Doe and her sister lives, RTP knows that the long-term low-income homeowners in gentrifying neighborhoods are facing increasing pressure to leave. One homeowner told us that he receives an offer a week from developers offering cash for his family to leave. It is especially difficult for homeowners to remain in their homes if they need extensive repairs, but they cannot afford them. Residents should not be displaced from neighborhoods that they have called homes for generations. We do not want to become a city where only the rich live in certain neighborhoods and the poor live in others. We have a wonderful relationship with Michael Kuntz at PHDC and with all of the folks at OHCD, where they give us in-kind labor from the BSRP contractors. This works very well. We've been able to do a lot more extensive work, and I want to applaud the partnership that so many people have spoken about today. But we need to increase funding for the Housing Trust Fund to help ensure the equitable development of improving neighborhoods and provide stability for our struggling neighborhoods. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, and thank you for all you do. It's just a wonderful, wonderful program. Whenever I think about it, I see pictures in my mind of so many of the families, old and young, who have really benefited from this wonderful program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilwoman Bass. I'm Kiki Bolander on behalf of the Healthy Row House Project, which is an initiative of the Design Advocacy Group, and Next Great City, which is a coalition of 100 civic groups seeking healthy neighborhoods. It's a pleasure to be in this room on the rare occasion when everyone agrees. Our common goal is to keep our city diverse and thriving and to support our neighbors who struggle to find a good home, whether because of low income, disability, or age. We may not all agree on the details, but you all make me hopeful about our future, and I'm honored to be included in the conversation, especially sitting between Rebuilding Together and Habitat. I think we all have something to learn from one another, and two things struck me. I actually filled my little notebook here with notes. But Mr. Jeremiah said they're so stretched that they're only able to admit seniors and people with disabilities. And it occurs to me, listening to Karen Collins, that lots of times accessible housing needs to be new housing, and we need to be able to keep the resources in that to meet that need. What the Healthy Row House is about maintaining existing affordable housing. It was founded in 2014 and documented at healthyrowhouse.org. It's dedicated to the preservation of our blocks and blocks of affordable, occupied but deteriorating row houses. These are privately owned houses, either rental or by homeowners. These homes are Philadelphia's greatest affordable housing asset, and we cannot afford to squander that asset. Many of them are in need of repair, and those who live there have to make choices between buying food or fixing the roof. And that leaking roof and the resulting mold and dampness are making the residents sick. Dozens of studies have shown how the conditions inside a home are inextricably linked to the health of the residents. For some, however, if that house becomes uninhabitable, the next step is to become homeless, and the burden to their health and well-being becomes even more unbearable. Let's be frank. The Healthy Row House Project is intended to persuade you all to make this a strong part of city policy for the years to come, to repair houses, to keep owners and renters in their homes, and to make the conditions in their homes healthier. Asthma, in particular, is a fast-growing public health problem. Unhealthy housing conditions trigger 40% of all asthma incidents and contribute to students missing school, adults missing work, to terrifying and sometimes deadly, as was the case in the school where my daughter teaches, attacks for those who have the disease. Philadelphia has good government and nonprofit programs that offer home repair, but we need to bring that work to scale and repair thousands of homes every year. Our neighborhoods have lost way too many affordable homes to abandonment over the past 60 years. Now that the city is growing again, there is no reason to lose more. And as market rate houses are built next to older homes in poor repair, inevitably resentment rises instead of neighborliness and brotherly love. And that very character that attracted new residents to invest in the neighborhood is diminished. In Philadelphia, we're rightly very proud of our historic buildings and our new modern ones. That gives our city the look of a modern, forward-looking place and one with deep roots in its history. Those longtime residents, side by side with the new ones, make up our character as a city, creative, forward-looking, and proud of our diversity and our roots. We have quite a high rate of home ownership in Philadelphia, but 38% of homeowners make less than $35,000 a year. These homeowners want to stay in their homes, but they can't afford to repair them, and they need someone they can trust to help them team up with contractors to do those repairs that are most likely to stabilize the structure and remove health hazards. The median value of a single-family house sold in Philadelphia has increased 22% citywide over the last 10 years. Rising property values create enough home equity in many parts of Philadelphia to allow a property owner to finance repairs with a low-interest loan or a deferred loan due upon the sale of the house, and still make a profit when he or she decides to sell. In the meantime, repair will maintain value in the building that would otherwise be lost. Many of our very poorest citizens, as we have heard, are renters. Finding ways to improve the quality of their homes while keeping rents in check is a major part of any comprehensive housing policy. Many landlords own and rent only one or two properties. Perhaps they moved and kept the old house or inherited it or invested in a building for income. We tend to think of landlords as faceless corporations, but often they are our neighbors, and like those neighbors, there are good actors and bad actors. Many lack the skills, means, and knowledge to keep buildings in good condition. For those landlords who lack the good intent and out of greed or laziness rent out units in deplorable conditions, other cities like Boston and Los Angeles have initiated tiered inspections and enforcement in order to offer incentives to the good actors and go after the bad actors. When we started the Healthy Row House project, we thought the biggest hurdle would be in funding the programs. Not so. Other cities are finding ways for landlords as well as homeowners. For landlords in Chicago, a nonprofit community development financial institution, or a CDFI, has created a $415 million loan pool for multifamily rehabilitation through commitments by investor banks. Over the last 30 years, they made 1,900 loans for $1.1 billion. This is where I get jealous. And they rehabilitated almost 50,000 units of affordable housing for more than 125,000 people. It worked so well that the group, called the Community Investment Corporation, was awarded the 2012 MacArthur Award for Creative and Effective Institutions. There is money available if we have the policies in place and the political will to go after it. We're not talking rocket science or advanced environmental science here. We're talking roof repair, mold removal, storm windows, fixing the furnace, and making people healthier. adults more able to hold down a job, young children more ready for school, whole neighborhoods where people have a better chance to be healthy and successful. At healthyrowhouse.org, you can see the growing list of organizations that have signed on to our 6 principles for a balanced housing policy. You can also see best practices from other cities for supporting responsible landlords and for supporting homeowners with more or less equity in their homes. Our work has been informed by an extraordinary advisory committee of 20 local leaders from the worlds of public health, housing, architecture, historic preservation, and urban planning. As is the case in this room, we didn't always agree on the details, but we all worked effectively toward the same goal of supporting our most vulnerable neighbors and keeping them healthy and in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and Councilwoman Bass. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Frank Monahan from Habitat for Humanity. I first want to echo Stephanie's comments that we want to thank OHCD and PHA for helping us with repairs, but that we are both dismayed that next year's budget will reduce the repair budget that would be coming our way. So that's a little dismaying. We know home ownership forms the cornerstone in the lives of families and communities. For the city, there are direct economic effects of creating home ownership. There is the increased tax base that funds our schools and other municipal services. This is why Habitat's work is so important. We build new or rehab vacant shells in partnerships with families we serve. Partner families earn a zero-interest 30-year Habitat mortgage by providing 350 hours of sweat equity towards building theirs and their neighbors' homes. And the nice part is Habitat homes all have buyers when they're finished, who move right in at completion. No home sits unpurchased. Additionally, we use volunteer services whenever possible to maximize and leverage every dollar. In the past, we were fortunate to receive some home funds through OHCD to help subsidize these efforts. And Habitat used to get awards for some projects that funded around 20% of the construction costs. And we understand how this is all being cut right now, and we are realizing that OHCD is facing nearly $40 million in budget cuts. But still, we use this funding to be able to capitalize on other funding and to leverage other funding. And it's very, very important for us to get that to be able to continue our mission. And last year, Habitat fielded 943 requests to join our ownership program. After we qualified them, there was 95, and we only had 16 slots that we could bring families into this program. And needless to say, the need is very, very great. We believe everyone deserves a decent, safe, affordable place to live. Furthermore, housing is a smart investment. Investing in housing sets people up to be more economically self-sufficient in the long run. The city has an obligation to create opportunities to adequately house all residents, but the city does not have to do this alone. So we urge you today to consider bold and innovative ways to bring in more dollars for the Housing Trust Fund, to make funding for ownership part of the affordable housing continuum. So thank you for your time and attention and the opportunity to comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monahan, for the excellent job that Habitat does around the city. I only wish we had more. We appreciate you do. Yeah, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure to work with you over the years. And we look forward to doing what we can to support it. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, let me thank you all very, very much for your important testimony. Next, we have building new rental and home ownership units, People's Emergency Center, Kara Strong, Maria Gonzalez Hasse, and John Chen, Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation. Thank you very much for your patience. Welcome. Please identify yourself for the record and begin. Thank you, Carrie.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman Blackwell. It's a pleasure to be here, and Councilwoman Bass. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kira Strong, Vice President for Community and Economic Development with People's Emergency Center. Our mission is to nurture families, strengthen neighborhoods, and drive change in West Philadelphia. We've developed over 240 housing units and 5 educational centers which offer employment training, parenting and early childhood education, financial education and planning, life skills, and technology access. With these services, we seek to support the positive life trajectory for women and children and families who seek our services. Our community development work responds to community needs and builds on neighborhood assets to help bridge the digital divide, expand mixed income housing opportunities, stimulate economic growth, create wealth, and improve quality of life for all West Philadelphia residents. I'm here to speak about, as you all well know by now, in the testimony, the incredible need for affordable housing, which we see in our work with the homeless and low-income populations and families in the neighborhoods that we serve. As you know, and you've heard lots of statistics here this afternoon, there are over 100,000 households in Philadelphia that are rent burdened, which pay more than 30 to 50% of their income towards housing. In West Philadelphia's Promise Zone, approximately 50% of our residents are rent burdened. At PEC, we see this evidenced in the fact that last year, more than 1,500 families and their 4,000 children entered the city's emergency housing system. More than 400,000 people in Philadelphia live under poverty, and we see it evidenced on the ground in the more than 800 applications for 32 spots of affordable housing in a development we completed a couple of years ago. I saw it 2 weeks ago at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning when I walked into a lobby full of prospective applicants for a recently completed 11-unit development on the very first day we started accepting applications. We also see the need, and this has been mentioned earlier this afternoon as well, to preserve affordability, especially in neighborhoods with rapidly changing real estate markets. That's been referenced before also in West Philadelphia. We've worked to complete over 120 basic systems and facade repairs for low-income residents, and we're lucky to have the services of Rebuilding Together and Habitat that you heard about previously. And many of these residents are elderly or minimum wage workers, and without this intervention, these residents would likely be displaced. And I know you heard about that earlier as well. By helping to stabilize their homes, we prevent homelessness, vacancy, and deterioration on our residential blocks. In addition to building units, PEC is fortunate to be able to provide other critical services that help prevent homelessness and connect residents to resources they need. We're able to offer connections to city services through the NAC program, the Benefits Access Center, and the Financial Access Center. And these are really important supporting services that keep people in their homes. Even with this, it's not enough, and as you know, it takes too long. Our typical affordable housing development takes 3 to 5 years from conception to rent up. And you guys all know this well, due to needing to apply multiple times to have a project funded because the competition is so great. This is simply not an efficient or budget-conscious way to produce any kind of housing, especially one for which there is so great a need. Additionally, if sufficient funding were available, and I know that might be at another hearing, but PEC and other organizations in other parts of the city, I think, would be greatly interested in filling the need for low and moderate income rental and ownership units in areas such as ours in West Philly and North Philly, which are rapidly filling with student housing. We understand that funding the creation and preservation of affordable housing units and related services is difficult, and that you understand the need is great. We appreciate that you're holding these hearings, listening to our testimony, and doing what you can to ensure that we have the resources we need. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Blackwell and Councilwoman Bass. My name is Maria Gonzalez. I am the president of ASE. ASE is a nonprofit community development corporation founded in 1982 with a mission to combat community deterioration through economic development initiatives that addresses commercial development and small business development, job creation, affordable housing, and support services to meet the needs of our residents towards rebuilding the neighborhood's economy. We work to restore our communities so that residents will benefit from sound investments. My testimony is really going to focus on the need for more affordable housing for elders. US is the only provider of subsidized supportive housing designed for the elderly in the Fairhill and St. Hugh neighborhoods and has over 20 years of on-the-ground experience in learning as to what it takes to allow low-income elders to age in place with the services they need to maintain their independence, engage in community life, and avoid institutionalization in partnership with a range of social service organizations. ASE provides direct services to approximately 360 elders in the neighborhood in the areas of affordable housing, case management, healthcare, nutrition, financial literacy, energy assistance, socialization, volunteerism, civic engagement, and employment. ASE's most recent contribution to elder care is a success in bringing the first PACE center that provides comprehensive health care and adult daycare to the neighborhood. In the midst of the recession, ASE raised $5.8 million to build this 17,000 square foot facility in our neighborhood that within 1 year achieved full enrollment of 170 Medicaid eligible seniors. The Mercy Life Center now employs 30 people from the community and is the only facility of its kind within a 10-mile radius. Despite these successes, the senior population in ASE's neighborhoods has also grown increasingly poor over the last few decades. Based on census information, the percentage of the senior population living below the poverty line has steadily increased from 25% in 1980, 31% in 1990, 32% in 2000, and now recent data shows that 44% of the seniors are living in poverty. The incidence of poverty and the growth in the number of senior minorities in ASE's target neighborhoods clearly indicate the need for more affordable housing with access to social services that addresses the special needs of this population to age in place and remain independent, vital members of the community for as long as possible. Presently, we have over 400 persons on the waiting list for 210 units of senior housing. An application for housing takes approximately 3 years to move up to the list for one of these units. The need has fast outpaced the production of housing for this population, given the number of elders living in poverty and the elimination of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Section 202 program. There are only a few sources of funding for senior housing: low-income housing tax credit and housing trust fund, both of which are limited and in high demand. Similarly, community development block grant funds have been cut dramatically, meaning that very little is available for housing development or preservation for this population. Also, these funding sources do not provide rental subsidies, which are necessary for senior housing developments, since the majority of elders live in poverty and cannot afford low-income housing tax credit rents. Now more than ever, collaborations between nonprofit developers and the Philadelphia Housing Authority are critical for developing economically viable, affordable housing developments, not only for our seniors, but for families as well. As with most community development corporations, we have a pipeline of projects for rental and homeownership housing that are on hold due to lack of funding. These challenges limit our ability to deliver projects and to develop new programs and projects that serve the growing needs of our residents. Nonprofit community development corporations are the developers of last resort. We focus our energies in transforming neighborhoods that suffer from decades of disinvestment and create a market for new construction of rental and homeownership housing, commercial and institutional development, creating new jobs at the neighborhood level. The gap between the needs of our communities and available resources for decent, affordable housing is significant. Philadelphia needs a comprehensive housing strategy that considers all options and charts a long-range strategy towards significantly reducing the unmet need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chin?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Blackwell and Councilwoman Bass. My name is John Chin, and I'm testifying on behalf of my organization, the Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, whose mission is to preserve, protect, and promote Chinatown as an viable ethnic business and residential community. First, the leadership of PCDC Chairman Father Tom Betts and founder Cecilia Yep would like to state that it values and respects City Council and Madam Chair's leadership on this issue to deal with inadequate production and preservation of affordable housing in the City of Philadelphia. Chinatown provides specific amenities and benefits to low-income immigrants. It has been our pleasure to work with members of City Council on initiatives that impact our community. Chinatown is a work-live community where the number 2 reason for living in Chinatown is its close proximity to work. 49% of Chinatown's residents walk to work, compared to 8% for the city. The number 1 reason for living in Chinatown is the accessibility to amenities and language and cultural appropriate services. 4 of 10 residents have lived in Chinatown for over 10 years. Of the households in Chinatown, 46% subside on incomes below $20,000. And these are households. At this level of extreme poverty, at 30% of area median income for Philadelphia. 26% of residents are homeowners, which is one half the rate of Philadelphia. 61% of Chinese in Philadelphia are limited English proficient. When we take a closer look at the residents in Chinatown, we learn that some have limited or no credit history, are not part of the mainstream economy, and are not counted in the census. What we do know is that the data that PCDC has gathered from serving many of the neighborhood residents, and these are the numbers that I specified. Affordable housing is essential but dwindling need for this population, which is among the most vulnerable and underserved in the city. The Pennsylvania Housing Alliance just issued a report that states the extremely low-income population is the most impacted by the lack of affordable housing. Unfortunately, there's not enough disaggregate data to give a clear picture of the need. PCDC, with the assistance of Wells Fargo Regional CDC Foundation and a consultant, completed a neighborhood survey to complement the Census 2010 data. The need for affordable housing is great in Chinatown. 46% of households live at 30% of AMI. The Unlook House, which is a senior housing development in Chinatown, is the only subsidized senior housing apartment and has a 10-year waiting list for apartments. And seniors are our most vulnerable in our community. Between 2000 and 2010, 977 market rate units were developed in Chinatown, compared to 16 affordable units. Today, PCDC is partnering with Project Home to address the affordable housing crisis with a soon-to-be completed building called 810 Arch Ping An House. It's a LIHTC project of 94 affordable units with community space and accessibility to public transportation, amenities, and intensive social services. Much more resources are needed to provide housing for everyone, and City Council's partnership is key to the future success of affordability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We thank you all. Special thanks to Kira. And certainly we appreciate all that you do. Thank you. Finally, last but certainly not least, accessibility, aging, and veterans. Thomas Earl, Liberty Resources. German Perotti, Disabled in Action. Elena Jonas, Philadelphia Corporation for the Aging. Nia Wilson, AARP. Scott Brown, Veterans Housing. And Judith Robinson, 32nd Ward, RCO. If there is anyone else after that, we'll call again after these folks testify. You'll be welcome to speak. Thank you. Good afternoon. You may go in any order. Please identify yourself, Mr. Earl, and begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Earl, and I am the President and Executive Director of Liberty Resources, which is the federally funded Center for Independent Living in Philadelphia that serves people with disabilities, including many seniors with disabilities. And I thank Madam Chairperson, Councilwoman Blackwell, for chairing this important public hearing on housing, as well as the members of the committee. As you know, Councilwoman, Liberty Resources has been in operation for over 30 years, and we serve well over 2,000 people with disabilities throughout all corners of the city. Over 2,590 of our consumers that we serve live in each of the 10 councilmatic districts. So our coverage is across all parts of the city: West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, the Northeast, Southwest Philadelphia, and so on. The vast majority of people that we serve are people with physical disabilities that live on low fixed monthly incomes, typically Social Security and SSI. And throughout the year, we receive hundreds of calls from people seeking housing opportunities, similar to the ordeal that Ms. Holland testified to so accurately earlier from Women's Community Revitalization Project. We know the need for housing, affordable housing, together with the need of accessibility, make it a double whammy and so difficult for many of our consumers. Additionally, Liberty is serving more deaf and hard of hearing individuals than ever before, and learning that many of them also face a shortage of affordable housing. And we commend Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilman Greenlee for postponing the previously scheduled hearing so that we could have an American Sign Language interpreter here so our constituents who are deaf could participate. Thank you very much for that. A recent study, Liberty Resources is also a proud member of not only the Taking Back Our Vacant Land campaign that resulted in the Land Bank Ordinance, but we're also now a member of the Philadelphia Coalition for Affordable Communities. And recently, this group published the release of this important report that gives a lot of statistics and data that documents a lot of the housing shortages that we've been discussing today. We shared this with City Council in caucus chambers back earlier in April. And among the many things that this report points out, perhaps the most important is the growing gap between income and affordable housing. In particular, in Pennsylvania, this study, which was done by eConsult and written by Interface Studios, regrettably shows that the affordability of apartments and homes in Philadelphia has worsened over the past several years. Specifically, income for working families has decreased on average by 13% for the period 2000 through 2012, while for the same period, the cost of rental housing has soared by 52%. We have seen the city undertake a number of innovative efforts to address the housing crisis in Philadelphia. We have seen the Housing Trust Fund, which is a very innovative tool. We have seen the establishment of the Land Bank Ordinance, which is the largest land bank in any major urban city in the country. But while these legislative efforts, along with the limited resources of the Office of Housing and Community Development and the Philadelphia Housing Authority, have helped increase affordable housing, we, as the 5th largest city in the United States, have a very long way to go. According to the most recent U.S. Census figures, there are now over 48,735 people with mobility disabilities living in Philadelphia who are below the poverty line. Liberty Resources itself has a waiting list of over 110 consumers that we're working with to move out of nursing homes like Philadelphia Nursing Home, who want to move out of an institutional setting and live independently in the community. The lack of accessible housing for individuals with disabilities has escalated to such an unmet level in Philadelphia that in 2007, Liberty established its own HUD-certified community housing development organization, Liberty Housing Development Corporation. Since its inception, LHDC has built and successfully managed over 40 units of accessible housing that is integrated. Our most recent project consists of 13 accessible units to be built on a vacant lot at 55th and Vine that was built with a property donated by Councilman Curtis Jones, and we applaud Councilman Jones for this leadership effort. In 2015, with the support of Councilwoman Blackwell, we're seeking to build 24 units of additional housing, 7 which will be wheelchair accessible, at 52nd and Poplar, and we applaud Councilwoman for this effort and look forward to getting this housing up and running. This housing will be largely funded by low-income tax credit funding from Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. And regrettably, because of continued limited resources, neither OHCD nor PHA can support this project, but nevertheless, it's so important that we're moving forward anyway. In conclusion, we applaud the City Council for conducting this hearing to further document the shortage of housing, and we look forward to brainstorming on May 11th when we come up with some real-life solutions that we hope can address the growing gap. I think it's time that we realize the limitation of OHCD, we realize the limitations of PHA, and together with City Council and the new mayor, that we work together to make sure that people with disabilities and our seniors and disabled veterans all have a safe and accessible place to live in the community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Herman Perotti. I'm here to talk more about the difficulty of finding accessible housing as a person with a disability. When I moved to Philadelphia from Puerto Rico, it took me 5 years to find a house that I could readily purchase and make accessible without city or state assistance. In a neighborhood that I knew that I had family in and that I could easily use public transportation. 4 years looking at tens of places, none that I could easily make accessible. And I would hope that as we continue in the future, a visitability ordinance is something that we can look at passing in the city. I know it's something that we've looked at in the past, it just hasn't come through. But a visitability ordinance that any new construction, any new development is wheelchair accessible, is critical for aging in place for people with disabilities can buy new housing. Also, as Mr. Earl mentioned, the need for accessible housing is the one focus for nursing home transition people. It is the hardest thing that is keeping people in nursing homes from transitioning. It's been like that for the last 2-3 decades in this city, and it is time that we do something about the Philadelphia nursing home, turning it down, and the way to do it is by having more accessible housing. Mr. Earl also mentioned that nearly 50,000 people in this city are living between $9,000 and $12,000 a year. Affordability in our community is so needed. Earlier, it was mentioned how the difficulty of people that are earning $21,000 a year experience. Imagine at a max of $12,000. That it's preposterous, and that is keeping us from living in the city that we want to. Often we have to look for housing in other areas, away from our communities, away from our families, away from our churches, away from our friends. Please, it's time to make this city accessible. We've been talking about it for decades, really. You know it. If accessibility ordinance would not only help, again, age in place and people with disabilities, but also people with other sensorial disabilities. Adaptability is something that the city is looking at as this new era of construction is happening. We know 4th and Walnut is having new construction, 12th and Market is having great new construction, and with the land bank, a new era of development is going to hit our city like we haven't seen in 20 years. That new construction needs to be not only wheelchair accessible, but adaptability, where people with sensorial disabilities, different mental illnesses, and physical disabilities need different adaptabilities, and making the city, as new development comes, adaptable, where it can be easily adapted to any disability is critical. And we will have much development happening with the land bank in place, so we hope that accessibility, adaptability, and visitability is something that you critically take in mind. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Elena Jonas, Director of Housing at the Philadelphia Corporation for Aging. Our mission is to help older adults remain in their homes and communities for as long as reasonably possible. PCA, Philadelphia Corporation for Aging, is the state-designated area agency for aging responsible for coordinating and administering federal, state, and local funds for older individuals in Philadelphia. We provide a wide range of services to the city's elderly, from funding senior centers, administering long-term care programs, and we contract with over 180 agencies. We are also charged by the Federal Older Americans Act with advocating for the rights of older adults and planning for their future needs. Philadelphia Corporation for Aging provides a variety of housing services for persons age 60 and older living in Philadelphia, which include the minor home repair and modifications for low-income Philadelphia homeowners age 60 and older through the Senior Housing Assistance Repair Program, minor home repairs and modifications for Philadelphia homeowners whose household income is over 200% of poverty and are able to share in the cost of the repairs. We recently started the cost share program back in January 2013, which is proving successful. Home repairs and modifications for the consumers of PCA's long-term care programs funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Aging, along with supporting housing counselors with seniors. At PCA, we're also working to help our city become an age-friendly city. Age-friendly city is one that is committed to improving both the physical and social environments that surround the city's elders to facilitate independence and neighborhood cohesion. Essential ingredients needed for an age-friendly city: accessible housing, ease of public transportation, readily available fresh foods, safe and inviting public spaces, and a vibrant workforce that is aware of facing older adults. The premise of this agenda is that improvements of this kind will benefit Philadelphians of all ages. This age-friendly initiative is being led by the Mayor's Commission on Aging. To quote Mayor Nutter, our administration believes the linchpin for success as an age-friendly city is accessibility, access to everything and everything in which older people want to participate. In fiscal year 2014, PCA served 761,325 seniors in all of our services and programs, and yet the need and demand continues to grow. Our housing program served over 1,039 consumers. Philadelphia has the highest, second highest proportion of older adults out of 10 largest cities in the United States. There continues to be a need for ample, safe, accessible, and affordable housing to support seniors who wish to age in their communities. Within the past few years, our housing department conducted an informal survey of subsidized housing buildings and found that there is approximately one person on a waiting list for each occupied apartment. Because there is little turnover in these buildings, many have closed their waiting lists. So even this number may be understating the need. PCA maintains a list of current senior housing locations, and this is one of our #1 requested resources from the community. Given to this, we think it is important to share this information. In the next 10 years, we expect to see a significant increase in the number of older adults aged 60 through 74, especially among minority elders. Some might refer to this as the demographic shift as the age wave. Philadelphia is the 5th largest city in the nation, yet the 2nd highest poverty rate among older adults. 44% of seniors in Philadelphia, approximately 123,000 persons, live at or below 200% of the federal poverty rate. As a result of this, many report that it is somewhat or very difficult to afford housing repairs and maintenance. Of the roughly 206,000 older adults in the city, 73% own their own homes. Yet mobility problems, the state of homes, and financial difficulties report that to repair and maintain them are enormous obstacles which frequently results in inappropriate institutionalizations. We know through our nursing home transition program, PCA has found numerous seniors who are living in nursing homes because their nursing home stay ended up being longer than anticipated, and they lost their housing and cannot find available, appropriate, accessible, and affordable housing units to transition back to the community. Many of these seniors want and can be served in the community if appropriate housing was available. Besides supporting or facilitating more senior affordable housing and to help maintain and repair current homes, the city may consider more types of housing, such as accessory dwelling units, and also more accessible, visitable new developments. As you know, Philadelphia modernized its zoning code for the first time in 40 years. The new Zoning Code Commission has been very forward-thinking. Prior to its appointment in 2008, the words aging, elders, and senior citizens were not mentioned in the code. In fact, there's a section dedicated to accessory dwelling units, which we work to get incorporated. However, the areas where they are allowed is undefined. ADUs, or accessory development units, are subordinate additional residents that are constructed within a residential property or garage. They may benefit seniors by providing the opportunity to downsize and to live in the same building as caregivers without having to leave the community or go to institutions. Some Philadelphians have built ADUs illegally, which pose a great challenge for emergency personnel who cannot identify the units. We strongly urge you to consider allowing the ADUs throughout the city. When a home is visitable, it's a place where people of all ages and abilities can enter, circulate, and enjoy. Fortunately, visitability is another proposed addition to the code aimed at new construction and features 3 key elements. One is entrance to the home at grade level, which would be 0 steps. This is a critical matter because the majority of Philadelphia homes are row houses that feature front steps. The zero step would eliminate the need for retrofitting via ramps and exterior lifts, which are costly and complicated to install. If the entrance is in the back, this would mean that for a row home, alleys and backyards would need to be wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair. Number two, a half bathroom on the first floor. And number three, all hallways and doorways on the first floor should be wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair. These features are important to people of all ages, including older people who have difficulty with stairs, disabled persons who use wheelchairs, parents with children, bicyclists, and those with temporary disabilities such as a broken leg. Currently, all city and Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency funded housing must be visitable, but not privately developed housing. We strongly urge you to consider how our city's new developments can be visitable and therefore suitable for our future generations. And finally, there are seniors who are homeless, as we've already discussed. Our staff who work with this population suggest considerations that homeless shelters be evaluated to become senior-friendly. Many homeless seniors refuse to access the shelter system because they feel the facilities are not senior-friendly. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Thank you again. We'll hear from
Thank you.
Patrick Devlin. Thank you. Scott Brown. Scott, we didn't see you earlier. Thank you. And Judith Robinson. Is there someone who would like to speak after Ms. Robinson? Is there anyone who would like to speak who has not been recognized? All right. You may speak after Judith Robinson. Thanks.
You're first. Identify
I don't have a speech, so I would defer to these two gentlemen. Because I don't have a speech, I'll defer to you because I'm picking up off each speech. I'll go last. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Devlin. I'm speaking on behalf of Executive Council Member Nia Wilson and AARP. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak on affordable housing and
Thank you.
working on this issue. As you know, in Philadelphia, the poverty rate of senior citizens is almost double that of the rest of Pennsylvania, which means elderly, low-income Philadelphians make up a significant part of the population affected by decreased availability of affordable housing. AARP is encouraged by the effort of City Council in actively searching for solutions to the problems of elderly Philadelphians and the issues they have in finding affordable housing. We must recognize that we have an aging population, and we already have done so by declaring Philadelphia an age-friendly city. AARP believes that the first step in this commitment is to plan and find funding. However, we know this will not happen overnight, and we do believe this will require both public and private sectors. AARP has looked at this problem across the United States and established a number of principles and recommendations which we hope City Council will consider as we look for a solution to this issue. At the national level, AARP's volunteer board of directors has developed the following principles as we look to support housing affordability. A diverse choice of housing design options which meet the needs of older Philadelphians who wish to age in place, private and public sector involvement, incentives, and partnerships. Both policies and funding which ensure access to well-designed, safe, decent, accessible, and affordable housing which is integrated into diverse communities, and the preservation of existing housing that is affordable to people of lower incomes, particularly in the areas in which housing costs are increased. Affordable housing is a critical component of the principle of livable communities, which is one of AARP's strongly supported initiatives. AARP believes that Philadelphia should strive to make the city more livable for all its citizens, with the goal of achieving an atmosphere where Philadelphians have the chance to age in place. AARP's research shows that when elements of housing, mobility, and supportive features and services are available together, they increase the opportunity for people to be socially engaged and to become contributing members of society and the community around them. As City Council considers these policy changes, AARP AARP Pennsylvania, and the entire community stand with you and are ready to assist in research, information, and outreach efforts. Again, we thank you, and on behalf of AARP, I'm glad to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Brown, and I'm the director of the Veterans Advisory Commission and the director of Philadelphia County for Veterans. My office is downstairs in City Hall, 127. Before I say anything, Councilwoman Blackwell, as you know, I will take the opportunity to say thank you for everything that you do on a personal level and that your office does for veterans. It is truly inspiring as the director and as a veteran. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you, and let me say thank you to you as well. And to us, ended up having a Veterans Parade, and for all the work you do with Stand Down and across the board.
And thank
your positive attitude and willingness to serve.
Thanks
is
so much.
phenomenal.
I tried to sit through most of the hearing. I had to go downstairs kind of purposely, but I won't take up much time because when you go last, you get to say, I testify whatever they say is true, but I do want to point out a good thing. I think it was Jim Womer. Is he still here? Jim Womer testified something. I don't know if I heard it wrong or his testification was on purpose, but one of the things that he said was a little different than what we usually use, and that is, I hear people, when they come into my office, they say, things can always be worse, right? Things can always be worse. And I thought that I heard Jim say things can always get worse. So when I was downstairs in my office in between the hearing, I pulled out two dictionary words on what it means to get and what it is to be. And I found that they're both verbs, but the funny thing is that one is used as a verb with an object and one is used without an object. And so the be part is without an object. So when we come into my office and veterans are at their last moment and their only opportunity, and they've been homeless sometimes for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they've served this country, some with diligent and inspiring DD 214 returns and the great dedication they gave this country, say, well, you know what, Director, things can always be worse. And now I'm inspired to say, well, that's without an object. So we have a verb without an object. A man or woman who served their country is an object. They are us. They are of this city. They are our responsibility. And they're our responsibility in the office. So now I was inspired by the things can always get worse. Well, I'll make it simple. The get is the verb with an object. And council people like yourself and the council people of Philadelphia know that we are dealing with some of the most precious objects in this country. Men and women who are in Philadelphia County who are homeless, who are looking for the chance to make an affordable way of life. And it is our responsibility when dealing with verbs that have with an object, we know that we are better to serve those who have served this country, especially veterans, who are to end statistics like 578,000 people homeless in January of 2014. Statistic blows your mind. You hear all the time, I have people who come in inspired to end veterans' homelessness. How are we going to do that? Companies that come to me every day. The Tower Garden growing. How can we get a disabled vet to plant towers and get them substantial income? A livable wage, not minimum wage. When this man or woman decides to opt for their country, it's not the pay that gets them inspired. It's the service and love they have for the freedom of this country. And you know, great people like Tony Jenkins that are on my commission, Ed Lowry, who passed away, built their vision on making sure that homelessness, that veterans are not part of a homelessness statistic, let alone overall. One of the things that I want to make very clear is that in our office, when I became director approximately 15 months ago, was that there was an empty desk in our office. And it was there for storage purposes, or if someone comes over, we put papers on it. But one of the things that now I utilize that desk for is any organization like USEF, like the Veterans Multi-Service Center, like the Senior Law Center, they can use that desk daily. So no longer when the veteran comes in for a particular service that we may or may not know the answer, do we have to send that veteran back out. Because one of the things that I found is that the veteran has humbled themselves to get to my office, and now I need to send them to another place. When I have the ability to liquidate what services are offered for this veteran right in my office, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure not to have to send the veteran out anymore. So we try to set that relationship up. It's been working. I will challenge any organization that testified here today. If they want to be on our office and they want to help end veterans' homelessness, then here's the chance. Right in 127, there's a desk sitting there waiting for you. And so that when veterans come in, we know we're getting the problem fixed. our senior fair, Wednesday, May 13th, at the MSB building. It's a perfect opportunity in the heart of City Hall to show what your organization offers veterans and their family members. And so, if you want to get signed up, come to the office and sign up. If you want to meet the director, if you want me to come over, it would be my privilege, because when I go home to my house and to my family, I pray every night for the men and women who are homeless, especially in this county. And it's no more depressing to know that a man or woman who has served this country and to protect the freedoms that each one of us can go home and fall asleep in our own bed, that they don't have the same privilege. It's heart-wrenching, and I know that we could fix this, and I know we can make it better. So that's my plea. We are dealing with objects, the most precious object there is. Thanks, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Judith Robinson, and I'm here to testify in this housing forum. Housing is shelter. First, I just want to state that. We talk about it. I'm a real estate professional, so I understand it's an investment. I understand it's about making money, but housing is shelter. That's why it really pains me that PHA, an agency that is proposed to house our poor, low income, are using eminent domain and condemnation in Brewery Town, Shawswood area to remove over 300 or more African American homeowners. The houses that we reside in and occupy are affordable. We're there already. So I'm trying to figure out, and please help me with this, because I know this is not a PHA hearing. We will be going to PHA board meetings, but I'm bringing this to the public because we seem to have a blackout on the news. These folks are being separated from us. I'm in the housing task force meetings. They have been separated from us. It's no way PHA should move off of their footprint, which is Blumberg. We understand if they want to implode one of their buildings and move African Americans out of our city, as they have been doing as PHA. But we just want to put this on record, and we will come into your offices to ask for your support to stop PHA from spreading where private homeowners now reside in Brewery Town area. We understand it's going through gentrification, but you cannot move out African Americans to do who knows what. My experience of many years going to the redevelopment authority where the relocation happens, my experience tells me that these folks will not get fair market value. They have not, African Americans don't get fair market value when eminent domain is used. They're running around trying to find a decent lawyer to fight their battles. You don't seem to have eminent domain lawyers here in this town. So gentrification by condemnation by PHA, that's powerful. That is powerful, that PHA is allowed to condemn properties that have nothing to do with their footprint. So I want to put that on record first and foremost. And it needs to be stopped immediately. Cease and desist, PHA, if you're anywhere in the sound of my voice. Secondly, AVI, because I put this in alphabetical order, AVI will push many people out of their homes, especially as it's been implemented. I know you all as lawmakers make these laws, but I'm the one that watches how those things are implemented. You got Board of Revenue, you got OPA, you got the assessments office, you get the appeal, they're sending the higher bills to the mortgage company before your appeal even comes up. I personally have had a higher tax bill sent to my mortgage payment. I got a little small mortgage, but that increased my mortgage. So, and it has happened for 2 years while I waited for an appeal to happen. And this is hurting a lot of people. People are being moved out of their homes, or affordability is being lost because of the taxing policy. AVI, please check that out, especially before you even dare think about adding another dime to our real estate taxes. I don't care where you claim it's going. So please, AVI, putting people out of their homes, is out of order. Affordable housing, when we talk about affordable housing, please, I've been in real estate 30 years, it's my 30th year in real estate. What is affordability? For me as a real estate broker, I can go for the money. The highest priced house in the city, I'll sell it, and I'll make a nice commission. But since I started off this speak about housing as shelter, I'm not so callous and so greedy for money that I'm gonna think affordability is $300,000, $400,000 for one house, especially when it's been reproduced on the same land that public housing was on a few years ago. So all of a sudden now there's high, crazy numbers, which, you know, it is what it is. But affordable housing and a model for affordable housing would be Habitat for Humanity. They need to get more money. We need to look at what really is best practices. Habitat for Humanity has a great template for success all over the town. They do rehab on properties. They support repair. They should be given a substantial amount of any money that is available because they got it right. I looked at their board. Their board is very diverse. You look at some of these other boards, they're not diverse. No black women on the board and you're crying about poverty. Come on now, stop it. So let's look at who's got the best template and eliminate all this running all over the place with 99 different people claiming they're doing affordable housing when they're really adding to the increase in the market value of housing. Forbes magazine talked about us as a city being, I think, like 3 or 4, I don't remember the number, most expensive housing market, even now. Because when you look at income versus housing price, we don't have it. So let's think about how we can increase income by job creation. And you could do it by increasing more people and all this building and banging going on throughout the city. You know, it's not rocket science to make sure we have real inclusion for real. So what is affordability? Make sure we're clear on what affordability is. You have other programs, I'm sure, which I just haven't researched at this time, but I get a call often from a group called Helping Neighbors. It's a way to help neighbors stay in their homes. We should look for every program that's out of the box for real. That's why we should have more people sitting here. When you invite people, please invite the whole universe of voices, some of them who are willing to not just go by the agenda. Because if I just talked as a real estate professional, I'd be talking about affordable housing as $1 million too. But I have enough empathy to pull back from my money-grabbing ability to look at housing as shelter. How housing is financed is very important, especially as we talk about veterans. Over the years, I've sold many repossessed homes, but I would sell them after the homeowner was long gone. But I sold a lot of VA repossessed properties. So I'm gonna make a suggestion. I'm gonna come up and do some policy chatting with you all about when a homeowner has more equity than a mortgage company, and that's what's happening. Nobody likes to talk about that. You could pay a 30-year mortgage for 29 years, and on that 29th year, you could fall under whatever, divorce, drug addiction, whatever happens, and a mortgage company can foreclose on you. Even though your house might have increased in value over those 29 years, even though you paid every mortgage payment on time, on that last year, if you don't pay 3 months, they're able to go to foreclosure. There's no way in hell that a mortgage company and those money grabbers with the mortgage-backed securities, all this, that, and the third, should be allowed to make someone among the homeless when they don't have really the strongest equity position. Now that's a real estate something, that professional analysis that I'm gonna give you all. And I hope that we could come up with some kind of policy, which I know is gonna be on a federal level, but I want your support on stopping mortgage companies from being able to foreclose when a homeowner has more equity than the mortgage company. And I've seen that over many, many years where especially our veterans and a lot of VA HUD repossessed properties where people pay for many years, and then when they're not able to, they are moved to foreclosure. Some are among the homeless, and they have had more equity. That brings me to the sheriff department. When a a tax lien is done in the sheriff department has to follow the law and enforce a person not living in their home or moving out of their home, we should make certain that that department, the sheriff department, is giving proper notification to people. That's a major problem. Major problem, okay? Don't you let anybody tell you it's not. And notification is one thing. Not to say that person necessarily is going to be able to come back and save their property, but at least they could know to get their valued possessions out of the property before they come home and have their possessions just thrown out. I also found out recently with the sheriff department, if a person moves out of their home for a period of time and that property goes to sheriff's sale and is considered unoccupied, that 1 year right of redemption that we always thought the sheriff department would allow is no longer in the play. So that's very, very important. And as I see aggressive gentrification, sheriff sale tax liens going on, especially in Brewery Town area where it's targeted sheriff sales going on, okay, we need to stop allowing this madness, because the homeless money could go towards helping people stay in their home if we didn't have to spend so much running around trying to help so-called homeless people. You know, we could reduce that tremendously. Basic systems repair and any other repair program like a youth bill, we could use our young men who are in the youth bill program and any other program like that to modify basic systems repair program. We really do need to think out the box and hire people from our cities, since we're talking about poverty and how it connects to housing. Let's really give some people some jobs. You know, we have a little, digressing just slightly, a little land care contract. People can move along a little bit, just take the wolves away from their door, so to speak, by getting a little stipend. So we could do it if we had the will. Talking about homelessness, Project Home, all these years, in the name of reducing homelessness, has been going around. But now I'm seeing Project Home in my neighborhood be a straight up real estate developer. That's what they always were. Now they want to develop for veterans. I want to know how many of the people over all these years have been able to bring themselves up enough to be able to work on their projects. That's the question I'm asking. That's a good way of reducing poverty. Hire some of them homeless men. A lot of them were veterans. They used them for all these years in the name of homelessness. Now give them a job. And are anybody sober yet? Anybody worthy of being hired? They all over the place. Claim they was only at 22nd Street. Now they over at Broad, New York, doing straight up whatever housing. With what kind of housing would you call with a gym at the first level? Pretty spiffy, okay? So now they want to go into foster people, foster care, outgrowth. Let them hire some of the people who they're housing. We could reduce some poverty by that. And then some of those people could move on and make room for the next people, the people who PHA are not helping, because they so busy running all over the place, being a housing choice, this, that, and the third. Now they want to be the eminent domain agency. How you doing eminent domain? How's PHA allowed to do eminent domain on some black folks living in Brewery Town? Run tell that. Is any newspapers reporters in here since it's a blackout? I just want to reiterate that. It's a shame and a disgrace to have PHA, an agency that's supposed to house low-income people, being allowed to do some condemnation that's not in their footprint. Too much PHA on formerly privately owned land, a major problem. The land bank. The land should be given to those who are building affordable housing for the disabled, affordable housing like Habitat. So as all these people want to run and start grabbing land from the land bank, which all the land bank is taken from one, putting it in the bank, and then giving it to somebody else. We asked the question. We know who's making the deposit. Who can make a withdrawal? Let people make the withdrawal from that land bank that have a model that's really, truly affordable, like a Habitat for Humanity, and any other model that's like that. I thank you for the opportunity, but I just want to make sure that we can get some support on stopping gentrification, because gentrification is a major way that people become among the homeless. I understand if they're a senior citizen and they move into senior housing, they get 5 years of support for rental income. After that, then what? That's a question I ask. So PHA should not be allowed with a little bit of federal dollars that's left, because I understand OHCD's money is shrinking by the second, okay? Now they want to suck up PHA dollars. We need to identify whether you're going to house people, low-income people, they claiming they're neighborhood of choice and all, whatever that means. But there's no way you should be choicing a neighborhood up by gentrifying and moving African Americans out. They move enough African Americans, PHA, out of the projects that they implode. Every one of them, just like Bloomberg. They're going to remove like 1,000 people, and they're only putting back 57 units initially. So why in the heck are they somewhere over where some homeowners are, moving them out, trying to condemn them? Please, Madam Blackwell, help us. I know you were on that PHA board, and I know you're involved with a lot of what they do. There's no way we're going to allow them to move homeowners out and make them among maybe the home unsecured without a major battle. So I'm letting everybody know now, all the elected officials, the people running, trying to get up in here, you better recognize what's going on in North Philly. We're getting a blackout, we're getting slammed for down phones, but you know what? That's not going to stop us, because thanks to you all, I appreciate public participation and the opportunity to come down here and get it on the record. On this record that people will be able to look at years later and know that Judith Robinson said hell no to gentrification. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more speakers, unless there's someone else just to. The chair notes that Councilman Brian O'Neill is here, and we invite you to begin your testimony. Please identify yourself for the record.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you.
And everyone else. I work at Liberty Resources, and Thomas Earl is our CEO and Executive Director, and I applaud him for his comments today. And regarding interpreters here, everything ran very, very smoothly. We have a group of deaf people sitting over in the corner and have really been able to take part in today's conversation. In 2010,
Just a minute, we do need your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Harry Barnum.
Thank you.
And I'm a deaf outreach coordinator for Liberty Resources. I started working at Liberty Resources in 2010, and many deaf and hard of hearing people, blind people, and other deaf people with various disabilities really complained about the housing issue that they were facing and that they're currently still facing. There was no information sharing between the city and helping people find homes and places to live, whether it was North Philly, South Philly, Northeast Philly, Southwest Philly, it didn't matter. And they were put in a bad position, and that their homes, they couldn't afford the rent. And many deaf people, hard of hearing people are on SSI, and based on that income, they couldn't afford housing. And then PHA told them that they would be on the waiting list. And that waiting list continued for many, many years. Many other people were helped, but the deaf people were very... Can you stand up so they can watch? Thank you. I'm sorry. I was sitting down and my deaf constituents over there couldn't see me, so I'm going to stand up so they could see me. So there was various deaf organizations that we reached out to and said, you know, we don't have the resources. So PHA didn't really do much for us. So Liberty Resources, and there was a woman over there sitting in the corner from Liberty Resources, she got a lot of the deaf people coming to her and said, we need deaf staff. We need money and we need housing, and there's many various reasons why people can't afford housing. So the activity started with the woman standing in the corner, and many deaf and hard of hearing who have also come and listened to the speeches here. There was always a lot of talk and not a lot of doing, but now it's time to get doing and put our money where our mouth is and find the money. It doesn't matter what disability you have. We need a solution to help everyone with any disability. This waiting needs to stop. Deaf people have been waiting for many, 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 many years, right, everybody over there? Yes. So they're waiting, and they're tired waiting. The time is now. Yes. You're sitting here listening to our stories, and it's been the same problem for many, many years, and the same problem that Liberty Resources faces. Now is the time to take advantage of the opportunity, see what properties are vacant, see what facilities are vacant. Also, there's many deaf senior citizens that can't afford housing. They don't want to be put in a nursing home. They want to be out and be independent in their own homes. We can't force them to be put in a nursing home. That's not right. People want to remain independent, and that is their right, whether they're deaf, hard of hearing, or hearing. So again, it doesn't matter which part of the city anybody lives, it's the same story. People are becoming older, people are low income, people rely on Social Security, SSI, and the numbers are increasing. However, their income is not increasing, and none of it makes any sense. So I ask you to please help so that we can be on the same playing field as everyone else. It's our right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Councilwoman Blackwell, as well as all the other council members that are here today. My name is Doris Thomas. I'm a member of the Disabled American Veterans Organization. I'm also a member of the Mayor's Commission on African and Caribbean Diaspora, and we are very much interested in having, I would like to, first of all of the housing developments and all the new construction that's taking place, how many of those properties and building developments that are going up, how many of them are developed by minorities? How many of them are developed by women developers? That's my first question, and I would like to know that. Secondly, there again, veterans, individuals with people with disabilities, regardless of the disability, how many individuals are creating those properties and units to accommodate veterans with disabilities, to accommodate individuals with disabilities, or to even accommodate anyone that is not meeting the market rate standards at this current moment. And the third question is, I would like to know, I am a member of Take Back Vacant Land and on the campaign for the Take Back Vacant Land. I want to definitely become one of the partners on the committee that deals with creating new housing and development in the city of Philadelphia, because I think the immigrant population, also the seniors, they've been waiting and waiting and waiting. There's a lot of waiting lists. Most people are waiting anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So there again, if we don't create the properties and the units for ourselves, I don't think that the properties that are currently being developed in Center City and in Fishtown and in Northern Liberties, they're all in the $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 range. So how many people are going to meet that criteria for income. So I'm asking you, Councilwoman Blackwell, we need to sit down and discuss which sections of the city we can all work with you. We can work with housing development corporations, and we also have our own out-of-the-box thinking and innovative thinking for creating some opportunities for those of us who are veterans and want to construct some new developments in the city of Philadelphia. We're supposed to be a first-class city, and we're supposed to represent the nation, and I think that we need to get some more funding also from the Veteran Administration, because they only have a certain number of vouchers for veterans, and the vouchers for veterans and the veterans who are homeless don't equate either. So the funding sources, even though they exist, is not the same. It's a whole lot of inequity that's taking place within the city of Philadelphia, and we are here to address it. Thank you very much, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Give me your name again.
Doris, D-O-R-I-S, Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Blackwell and Councilman Brian O'Neill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These will be our last. Is there anyone else? Ladies, can you keep it short? Yes. Thank you. Come forward. Thank you. Identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony. Nice seeing you, Leon.
Thank you, Councilwoman, Madam Councilwoman, and thank you, Councilman. My name is Diane Johnson, and I'm from the Philadelphia, Delaware Valley Union of the Homeless. And I'm truly touched by what I heard today. I first want to applaud WCRP for all the work that they are doing and their dedication and their fight, and we stand with them with their fight. Now, what I really have to say is that the councilwoman that's not here offended me to my heart when she said, Councilwoman Sanchez, when she said that there's always going to be a certain amount of poor and destitute people. We understand that, so that's okay. We can work around that. There's got to be an attitude changed about that. At some point in our life, Councilwoman Blackwell, we've got to understand that it does not have to always be a poor in America. At some point in our lifetime, we've got to understand that there don't have to be homelessness in our city or in our country. And at some point in our lifetime, we've got to understand that there don't have to be children that are hungry, that don't have good education, and that don't have good health care in America. It's unacceptable. And as long as people keep accepting it and say that, oh, it's the status quo, it's always going to be just some of them, and it's acceptable, then nothing is going to change. But I'm here to say that as long as I live and breathe, I'm going to fight against that ideal that it is acceptable, because it's not acceptable. Thank you very much, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Nice seeing you too, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman, Ms. Blackwell, and everybody else. My name is Alicia Moore. I am from different organizations, Delaware Valley Union of the Homeless, Poor People's Economics, from Martin Luther King, starting from where he started from. But I am here to say that I'm also part of a stirring of the sleeping giants. Now, the reason that I am so upset is because most of everything that I hear is that until we actually eradicate poverty and appropriate funds evenly and stop cutting these social programs that would help with poverty and stop putting so much money. We have money for war, but we can't afford to feed our poor. Now, that's where a lot of all this is coming from. I believe in our lifetime, as Ms. Johnson say, because if we don't, an edifice that produces poor people and beggars needs to be restructured. And Martin Luther King said that. And back then, there were over 40 million people when he said that. Now there are over 60 million poor people in America. Why is that? Can we help with that? And being poor and destitute and accepting that is not an acceptance for us if we're going to move forward. We're not going to move forward unless we get this idea. Let's look at Utah and see how they cleaned up their homelessness. They did. And it wasn't because of some bureaucratic stuff. It was because of people who cared. So we need to take the pyramid and turn it upside down now and work from the bottom on the way up. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for letting me express that.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
You're welcome.
Ms. Smith?
And I saw you at the water ice stand.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Leona Smith. I am the president of the National Delaware Valley Union of the Homeless. I'm here today to serve notice to the city of Philadelphia because I have a story to be told. Back in 2010, my husband passed away. He owned a property at 1930 Nedrow Street. Due to his passing, I then went into his house and gathered up the belongings. Was not aware that he was 2 years behind in real estate taxes. I then went down and I paid 2012 taxes myself and 2013. It was brought to my attention that the real estate taxes had jumped from $55,000 a year for a single-row home to $125,000 that was evaluated by the city of Philadelphia. And I paid that money on those taxes. But the 2 years, of course, there was interest and there were penalties that I was not aware of, and he's deceased, escalated. I called down to the tax unit, and I was told that my husband's taxes had risen to $7,000 that was owed in back taxes. I had $2,000 in my pocket. I was told that the house was going up for sheriff's sale for $7,000 that following 2 days, which was last month of March the 17th. I asked, can I bring the $2,000 that I had in my pocket to set up a payment plan? I was rejected. I was told that I had to pay 50% of the back taxes, which was amounted to $4,000, and I only had two, and it was not accepted. I'm here to serve notice today. My grandson now resides in that property. He's been there ever since my husband has passed. He will not be another statistic of homelessness. They will have to bulldoze that house with me in it before I let any developer come in there. My husband been in that house until the day he died, 25 years. And they're not going to take my property for $7,000, and I'm sure the developer probably paid less than that, because I know how they operate when they want to come in and take over. And this has happened to me. How many other people have this happened to? So whatever has been done, I'm serving notice. It better be undone, because we're not going nowhere, and you have to bulldoze me in it.
That's right. Bottom line. Thank you very much. Let me thank you all for your patience. Let me thank Councilman O'Neill for being here.
Thank you.
This will conclude our hearing, and I want to thank everyone. We will continue this hearing on the next phase, and today we wanted to talk about the problem. Our next phase, we've changed that hearing date from March to June 1st at 2 o'clock to talk about what action we should take from here.
Councilwoman Jenny Baker, I have one other question. My question is, I've sat here and I've listened, but what I didn't hear was any solutions to the problems that everybody talked about today, including myself. I'm not hearing what I want to hear, and I love you dearly, and you know that. But I'm not hearing what I want to hear, even with my own situation, is what's going to be done about the things we talked about here today.
Okay, we will have another hearing June 1st at 2 o'clock. Today's hearing was to document the issue.
Okay.
The next hearing is to talk about what we can do, talk about solutions. So that'll be June 1st at 2 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is adjourned. Thanks.